All right, good evening. This is the March 12th, 2019 meeting of the Finance Committee. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to get started, but at the beginning, I'd like to have everyone on the Finance Committee introduce themselves just quickly.
I'm Dick Vandenberg.
Mike Hutnack?
Howard D'Amico.
Lynn Mazzulli.
Heather Moore.
Joel Gogolinsky.
Okay, and why don't we start with the Highway Department, if you would, John?
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name's John Furno. I'm the highway superintendent.
One of these.
See, Gene kind of is here. It works, it works. Thank you.
I saved the staples.
Excellent.
Endangered species.
Excellent.
First they take away straws, no staples.
That's right. And then here,
Perfect.
these are 4 different documents, because John has 5 accounts.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't print out the 5th one because it changed by $83. We figured
Okay.
the highway sign budget wasn't gonna be a major source of controversy. But there should be a copy and extras.
John, just verbally, walk me through, before down to the detail, what are we looking to cover tonight?
I'm looking just to go over any major changes in the budget, the numbers that have changed. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about I'm now the tree warden. I've had that job for a couple of years.
Okay,
There's some big things coming down with that, so we got
Okay.
a proposal for you folks.
do you have an order you want to present things in?
We can start with the regular budget, if you don't
Okay.
mind. I mean,
Okay.
I'll do whatever you want. but-
Let's do that.
Is this your
Let's go
Howard?
there.
The tree warden.
John, one of the things I'd like to do,
Yeah,
there might be a little bit of a change.
sure.
I'd like to hear first, what are the bigger ticket items that change or have changed from last year to this year, if there are any?
Yeah, well, we can talk about that. I'll let Mr. Wojcik speak a little bit after
Sure.
I start, but the biggest ticket is on the salaries. We went from 437,616 to 474,548. What we've done is incorporate, I don't know if everyone's aware that we have now run the building maintenance department. One of my guys does it a half a day, so what we've decided to do is put the full salary into my budget rather than have 2 different time cards per se for Adam. We're gonna put it into one. That's why that number has gone up. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Matt?
Yeah, so that's the subject of that 2-page fiscal note that I
Yep.
wrote out for you.
Yep.
And in a nutshell, Mr. Chairman, I think you'll see where I'm coming from this.
Vice Chairman,
Mr. Vice Chairman, you're chairman right now.
go ahead.
The employee has been paid both on the management compensation chart for his business here as the building official, building facilities maintenance guy. He's paid as a management employee. Then when he goes over to John's shop and works his other 20 hours, he's punching a card as a PM5, step 8. My personal view is that's really not a good practice. He's an hourly employee. For calculation of his overtime rate, it should be his full 40 hours, so that we're doing it right. We're not trying to blend a rate, we're not cross-assigning him. So if, when he works 30 hours on a building facility maintenance issue, we still, to get paid the paycheck he expects, he's still gonna punch in and work his 20, because otherwise there's no way to justify the check. So it puts him I think it puts him in a ridiculous position, and we don't need him to be assigned to any one particular place in the chart of accounts. He just needs to be paid for what he does. Now, when I did that, because we want to keep him on the hourly scale. The highest hourly pay step is PM5, step 10. And when you compare that to the blended rate he was earning, he comes out a little ahead one year, and he comes out behind 3 years in a row, and then he comes out just a tiny bit ahead in year 5 of that flow. One of the things we added to Adam's responsibilities this year, it's a very big deal. He is now the OSHA safety officer for the town. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, for the first time in the last year, Governor Baker signed legislation to extend OSHA standards down to our employees. So we need somebody to do the training, to be the watchdog, to fill out the reports. And mind you that when he does those things, we get credit against our property casualty insurance premium because we get credit for the classes he takes and the work he does. So I'm like the last person in the universe ever to ask to do this, but I thought the appropriate way to capture that would be with a flat stipend. That way we cover what he would have been paid and a little, about $1,000 more, but we don't tie it to a cost of living increase or a step or anything. But we make him whole, we give him a little bump for what extra duties he's taken on. And if you don't know Adam, there isn't a certification or license he doesn't have. He's got his OSHA 30 card, he's got his CDL, he's got his hoisting license, there's a water sewer operator's license. He's jack of all trades for the town. We would fall apart without the guy. So the grand scheme of things, the total fiscal impact is just about $1,900 a year on average across the next 5 years, each year.
Okay.
But for
I see
us, it's a
that.
big deal because
Okay.
we're rectifying a bunch of problems.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay. John, go ahead.
All right, so that's our biggest bump is on the salaries.
Oh, there'll be an offset, by the way. So
Well-
the salary line on the building facility management, it goes to zero. So
So
that.
when
that
Adam comes in with
Right,
his
right,
budget,
right.
you'll see
Okay,
no money
okay,
on the salary.
Okay,
Okay, so mine jumped up, but his goes down. Pretty simple.
yeah.
Um,
Other than that, yours goes up, it looks like just $6,000 or $7,000,
Correct.
right? Okay,
Correct.
all right.
Highway, that's the administration. The expenses go up minimal from 32,102 to 31,392. Then I get into highway maintenance.
John, how many on the highway department payroll?
Right now, 5.5. I have one opening that I'm filling, but I just call Adam a half because
How is that historically? Is that kind of normal for us? 5?
No, we're one down from 2014 when I lost a guy. I'm still down a guy. You know, makes it difficult in the winter to fill that extra sander. I have some part-time guys, but they're firefighters or truck drivers if they're not available. I mean, I get in the truck a lot of the times, but I'm still down a guy from where I'd really like to be.
So is 6 kind of what you prefer, or 6.5 what you prefer?
6.5, yes,
Okay.
yep. That would be optimal.
And we've had that before?
We have. We lost a guy when we had our budget cuts back in, this was 2014, but I have a whole timeline, I can go over it with you if you guys want, from 2010, what I lost each year leading up till now. But
You didn't get less roads either, did you, John?
I got more roads.
I
now.
know.
I got more roads, yeah.
Okay,
So the regular highway maintenance expenses gone up less than $2,000. And that's my regular highway budget in a
okay.
nutshell. I don't know if there's any questions before I move on from that.
No, sir.
Okay.
Anyone?
All right, so next is the tree warden. I took this over when Mr. Mazinski retired 2 years ago. I'm not an arborist by any means. But what we've learned, I went to a tree mortality workshop back in October, put on by National Grid, DCR, and the Mass Tree Wardens. And as you all know, you see the dead oak trees all over town. The gypsy moths have done a job to all the oaks. You know, there's a ton of dead trees. We're taking them down as we can. I've worn out my welcome with National Grid with the trick that's leaning over the wires. Mike knows that trick. You know, so they don't like hearing from me. They've been very good to me, but they tell me they're not in the tree business, we're in the electric business, you know, but they do take trees down, so, they've been good to us. So, what came out of that workshop was, us without a plan in place to take down these dead trees, to maintain our trees. If a tree were to fall in a public way, where there was a person or in a nearby town that happened a year or two ago,
Right.
Yeah, I know.
someone was killed unfortunately. So what they've pointed us to is getting a tree survey done in your town, have a plan in place. So if something bad were to happen, for one, you're not gonna get sued and no one's gonna get hurt. So, but this costs money, and it costs quite a bit of money, to be honest with you. So what we've done, does everyone have the packet did they get a packet in that? Okay. So there's a cover letter explaining, I can touch on the highlights, and then we can go through it. So in October, I attended the workshop. They showed Douglas in their maps and on their slideshow more than any other town, believe it or not, because we got hit real hard. They showed Mumford Street in particular. If you take a ride down Mumford Street, you'll see there's 4-foot oaks down there that are all dead from the gypsy moth. So, you know, they used us as an example, which is a bad thing, I guess. But so, talking with Matt, talking with Bill Cundiff, talking with Adam. So we reached out to Davy Tree just as one vendor to give us a tree management plan. But it's rather expensive. So what we did is try to break it down into 3 phases. And each phase be costing us about $20,000. We broke up the town into 3 sectors that actually we used the fire department's map when we call mutual aid Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3. So we used their same mapping system to make it simple. So for us to get them to come in, they'll assess about 5,700 trees and give us a plan. It'll go on a GIS map, so if we cut that tree, it goes up, we get on the map, we eliminate that tree, make a notation of what's been done to it, or just trimmed, or whatever the recommendation is. So it's about $20,000. Again, it'll go on the GIS system, and the cost is $350 a tree. If you do the math, that gives us 5,700 trees to get done. This is our first time through. I'm not gonna tell you this is 100% sure this is all the money we're gonna need, because this is a learning curve for us as well. There is a grant available. We missed to get some of this money back. It's every October. This class was October 26th, so they told us, you know, starting in the summer of next year, try to get the grant to help you match some of the funds, you know, but we missed the first round.
So these trees are trees that are right where the road meets someone's
That's
property?
correct. It's on
Okay.
town property.
How far into someone's property?
Each street is different. You know, like Webster Street, we own 60 feet there. South Street, we own 60 feet, but some streets, we only own 24 feet. You know, we have that in a mapping system. So, we would know whose is whose tree.
Now, if they assess the tree, let's say a tree happens to be on private property, like right on the edge, and
Yeah.
it looks like it's ready to go onto the road to kill somebody, do they give some assessment to that tree and?
You know, well, we've asked them to do this in our right of way, but I
Okay.
get what you're saying,
Yeah.
because that can cause the same damage.
Yeah,
but
right.
Unfortunately, we don't own that tree.
Right.
Well, fortunately, I guess.
Yeah.
We don't own the tree, but maybe we can put the owner on notice or
Yeah,
something, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. So, and I did speak to Rep McKenna, because I said, hey, we got a big state forest, can you guys help us out here with some of this tree stuff, you
Right.
know? Because, and he was gonna look into it, but I never heard a word back, so.
Couple of questions?
Sure.
Okay, so I see at the back of the packet, it looks like 3 pages of about 24 trees each, about 72 trees.
Oh, yeah, these are trees that we've taken down in the last year ourselves.
Okay.
You actually
And
found
what was-
yourselves?
No, we did some,
Yeah,
John, what department takes those down, took those down?
Well, I'm in charge to get them down. So, if you take a look, remove by on the
Yeah.
column,
Yep,
National Grid will take them down, but I have to send guys to assist. You
okay.
know, we help chip the brush, we do traffic, because
Okay.
the detail is $50 an hour, so.
What department is that coming out of? Highway.
Highway,
Okay,
yep,
okay,
yep.
yep.
So,
And do we have an estimate of that cost to us for those trees?
well, I'll tell you, my tree budget is $10,000 a year.
Okay.
So, that, I've got $10,000 worth of work in 3 pages,
That's.
using a lot of favors with National Grid and, you know, by our vendor that we use, he's $1,400 a day. If they have to bring in a crane, that jumps that price up to $3,000 a day.
Yeah.
You know, and then with $10,000, you do the math, it's not a lot of trees. So
Yeah.
that's why we're asking for 20,000 for tree removal, 20,000 for the study, just to get started. Yeah,
Let me go back. I
Yep.
missed the second part of that.
okay, well,
20,000 for the study.
correct. They call it a tree survey.
Yep. So we have not spent that yet?
We have not. This is, like I said, we're just feeling our way through this. This is our
Okay.
first year of doing this.
And is the 20,000 request for the survey in FY '20's budget request?
It is.
Where is that?
It's on the 294 tree warden page.
294, I don't think
There.
that was going on
20,000.
294 page. I did not get to.
Okay.
Bear with me, sorry, John.
Sorry.
So 20 for the study and then 20 for
Tree
phase
removal.
1,
Right.
in theory.
And I'll still,
Above the 10 already in there,
no, it'll be 20 total.
20 total for trees, so a
So-
10 increase on the tree
On the
removal budget?
Right. Total budget, 40,900. I'll still lean on National Grid as much as I can to get trees taken down. You know, we do have a good relationship with them, but they keep reminding me, we're not in the tree business, we're in the wire business, you know? So. And they're good, like I had from the windstorm we had, I had a couple of branches hanging, not even near the lines. I called up, hey, Dave Donahue, could you do me a favor? And he sent guys out twice for us, just getting branches that were dangerously hanging over the roadway, so.
What is the spotted lanternfly?
That's a new, coming in, it's in Western Mass, there's only a few, but they say within 3 years.
What's it look like?
There's pictures there somewhere.
What does the thing do?
It does the same thing as the gypsy
Oh,
moth.
God.
Yeah.
It's not
and
gonna
that's
leave
coming.
nasty webs and everything
Yeah,
else?
they did tell us that.
Oh,
This guy.
oh, there it is. Oh, God. I hate bugs.
John, I've also got a 423 snow and ice. Is that you
Yeah,
tonight?
that's me tonight.
All right.
We can jump onto that if there's no more tree questions.
Then I'm cutting all the trees down in my yard.
I've got a bunch of them.
Oh, yeah.
I got a whole bunch of those.
All right, so we're done with tree warden. We're on snow and ice? Okay, do you need one?
No, I just,
One ice. I think I do.
423.
Well, I got
We
it.
had 4 sheets.
that's the one I did.
Oh, but you didn't get tree warden?
I
Oh,
got
look
it.
it down here.
Just the tree warden.
Here's your tree warden.
Awesome.
These are, I
Got
think
it.
these
Now
are
I got it. Got it.
leftovers.
Good,
maybe.
good, good.
Okay. All right, snow and ice.
All right, so snow and ice. We've overspent, a deficit spent for, ever since I've been the superintendent in 2005. So we've been underfunded year after year. This year, right now, we've had 21 events, believe it or not. I know people say, oh, what an easy winter for you guys. Anyone want to come ride in the truck, come on down. You know, we've had 21 events, we're at $269. So last year, we were budgeted 155. Unfortunately, I don't have the number we spent last year, but this year we're asking for $199,950. We're gonna just increase the overtime, the part-time help, the sand salt, vehicle supplies for repairs, food supplies, and the public works supplies. It just makes so much sense. I mean, I've been back to Matt 2 or 3 times now. Yeah, 3 times now for the extra funding. So that's why we're asking for the $199,950.
What's under public works supplies?
Public works supply, I'm sorry, that's the sand and salt. Other services is my subcontractors.
So this is the big pile of sand that's over by the.
That's
highway
correct,
department.
and salt in the salt shed. Yeah. And at 46 and change a ton, it doesn't go very far. You know, we're treating over 100 miles of roads, you know, so.
How many trucks do you have?
I have 6 large dump trucks with sanders, 2 small F-550 dump trucks with plows. The large dump trucks have plows as well.
So the local guys who spread, do they also spread sand or they just
No,
plow?
They just plow.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep, they just plow. We use 17 subcontractors, 3 are at the schools at all times, 1 is here, library and post office. And the rest are spread out throughout the town.
So the plowing of the schools is in your budget?
That's
but-
correct.
Okay. You know, one of the things I've said for years is we just totally underfund this. I know we're still not funding it to where it needs, or
Reality.
where we'll end up spending, but it just doesn't make any sense to underfund it. I always say, all we're doing is lying to people on what it's gonna cost. So, I mean, it basically, so he's putting it here instead of taking it out later.
It's an
Well, I mean,
unrealistic, it's an
you-
unrealistic
you-
budget.
Yeah.
It should be
Right.
budgeted accordingly.
Right, I mean, you leave it off from here, and then
Right.
you've gotta cut it from some other
Right,
budget somewhere
exactly.
else.
You need to fund this correctly.
And I know that, I know there's a reason that we deficit fit spend, because.
Because once you raise it, you
raise it,
can't
we can't go
reduce it
back
again.
again.
Right.
But we don't have to worry about this
Cut the historical.
being too much in the budget.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
Anything else, John?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks for
coming
your
in.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
How many people on the highway department when we were we had our biggest number of employees?
I believe there were 7.
Okay.
Yep,
That's our historic high? is
it is 7.
7.5.
Well, now, yeah, 7.5 now. We gotta add that half. I
You know,
always
one
forget
of
about that.
One of the things, you know, you come in, you're the only department, quite frankly, that every single person in this town uses, okay?
That's one way to
Every
look at
single
it.
person in the town uses the highway department. If you don't have kids in school, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have the schools, but if you don't have kids in the schools, you're not using. If you don't go pick up a building permit, you're not using the building department. We're all hoping the fire and the police don't have to show up for us. But
I
this
use them
department-
every day, though, to make sure that I'm safe.
Okay, but this department, every single person in town uses them
That's
every
a good way
day.
to look at it. Thank you.
John, you said you're looking for one more person. What, is
Lynn
it
wants to
hard?
join.
No, we don't. Is it hard to find someone?
No, we
to-
just haven't advertised
Oh,
yet.
okay.
But, you know,
All right.
yeah, we'll fill that spot, no problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I was like, is it really that hard?
Yeah,
to
no,
fill that?
no, it's just, we had a mechanic leave and it's just,
Okay.
yeah. All right,
All right,
thank you, guys.
thank you,
Okay,
John.
thanks,
John.
John.
Thank you. Thank you.
Who's next? Where's Matthew going?
He said he'd be right back.
He's
You go-to guy.
my go-to guy. What do we bring up, the school department next?
Yeah. Who else do we?
I'll be back.
DVT.
Don't leave me.
He's not here.
I think we only have 2 for tonight, according to the schedule.
We do have a quorum of the school committee here, so I am going to call the school committee meeting to order at 7:33 on March, what did you say it was, March 12th?
It is March
Here,
12th.
Tuesday, March 12th. Welcome to the school committee meeting.
Don't forget to adjourn when we're done.
Yes, exactly. Sorry, someone
Could
please
you-
remind me of that. so.
Could you introduce those members, please?
Sure. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Lisa Brown, Kelly Grady.
Okay. And we also have our administration team here. Do you want to, should we introduce again? I know
Yes,
it's kind of-
please.
Wanna start with Ethan?
Cindy Sosha, primary school principal.
Neil Yerkard, Assistant Superintendent of Student Support Services.
Josh Mano, high school principal. Brian Delaney, middle school principal.
John Bell, elementary principal.
Just to the right, I'm Brett Argel,
Thank
school
you.
committee.
Yep,
And
Kevin Baines, Superintendent.
And Courtney Keegan, business and operations manager.
thank you.
So we have a packet that Courtney's going to hand out to you, but I figured just give you a quick overview. So we saw you guys 2 weeks
weeks
ago,
ago.
right? Talked a lot about where the school district is, some of the things that we've executed from a plan perspective, some of the challenges that we faced with certain, events, mostly around special education, things that we'd like to do in the future to keep driving the district forward. We're not going to cover a lot of that, but be happy to answer any
Sure.
follow-up questions that you guys have on any of that. So maybe we'll start there. Any open questions from that you want to start off with, or you?
I may go the
Move
other
back
way
to that?
around.
Okay,
Yes,
that's fine.
Yes, yep.
So tonight, we're really here to talk about the budget and the numbers. We kind of stayed away from the numbers till the very end last time. So two main points. Number one, I wanted to talk about just a general review of the budget process. We have some new folks here. We have some different funding sources than what, the rest of your town functions typically have. So just to go over that, because, we watched the meeting kind of after we left, seemed to be some open questions still around that, so I just wanted to make sure we cover that. And then after that, we'll go through an overview of this year's appropriation request, and really at 4 different levels. The level service to where we are, right now. How do we keep what we have right now into next year? What we need to execute the full plan that we talked about last week, so that'd be some additions to where we are right now. And also, what we would need to cut if we were only to get 2% or 1%. So we're going to show 4 different kind of scenarios on a nice 1-page summary. There's details if you need it.
Remind me again, what is level service?
Level service.
What percent? Increase.
It's actually, at 3.16% now.
Perfect.
It's a different number than what I talked about last time. We're going to talk about why that number
Okay.
changed as well. It's going to be part of the
But
conversation
as
as
I
well.
think about the 2%, 1%, I want to
Yeah.
know what my.
So level
bench
service is at
Yeah.
3.16%.
Okay,
Fully executing the plan is 5.34%, 24%. So I just give you a
Sure.
little bit of a preview.
Perfect.
We'll go
Thank
through
you.
all those details here in a little bit. But just backing up to the general budget process for us. So, again, schools operate a little bit differently. We've got about a $15 million budget. I'm going to use very round numbers here. Last year, we got about $13 million of that money from town's appropriation, our general fund appropriation. The other $2 million comes from our revolving funds. So we have other funding sources. We talked a little bit about them last time. There was our school choice dollars, our school choice in dollars. That money comes directly to the school district. Circuit breaker dollars, that's reimbursements for certain special education expenses, comes directly to the school district. We have grants that we get, and then we have our pre-K, I guess. Those are the big buckets. So we charge a fee for preschool. So when we request a budget, it's typically, we have an overall amount that we need to spend to stay at a certain level, whatever it might be. Money primarily comes from the general fund from the town, and we supplement that with these other revolving funds, which will then maintain balances beyond what we're supplementing the budget with to address any unforeseen circumstances, which every year we seem to have unforeseen circumstances. Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions
Sounds
on that? So when I say when we have a level service request right now, that level of service is actually higher than the level of service when we were here last year talking to you. We've added positions since then, both required positions for special education services, which we were able to fund through the use of revolving funds, as well as some positions that we added that were more proactive and planned adds that we were able to add because a couple of reasons. We may have had some savings in last year's budget, so when we were here talking about budget last year, we had some assumptions around how much we were going to spend the rest of the year, what we expected to get from revenues from the town, appropriation, what we expected to get for revolving fund revenues. Once we close the books out come July, a lot of those assumptions have changed. Maybe we didn't spend quite as much as we expected to the rest of the year. So we have some, revolving funds that we didn't use that we expected to. Maybe we got more in school choice than we expected to. So then comes September, or really August, we start thinking about this. We said, okay, our revolving fund balance are a little bit higher than what we expected at. Do we want to stash that money for rainy day or the things that we want to do right now that we think is the rainy day here already. We want to do some things proactively. So we've done some of that since we saw you guys last year. Make sense?
It does.
Okay.
The piece I haven't gotten in the last meeting and this meeting, bear with me, is where the override money factors into that.
Yeah, so the
The
override.
first year of it, and then this will be year 2.
Yeah, so the year 2, that's probably a question for us as well a bit. So, but just to rehash the override, when we were here, again, talking budget last year, without the override, we were looking at a 1% reduction in our appropriation versus our FY17 appropriation. That would have meant a $643 reduction off of a level service budget.
643,000?
Yeah, $43,000
Okay,
off
yep,
of a level service
okay,
budget.
yep.
So now, we for this year, for FY19, we would have found a way to get through that. We would have made certain cuts, and we would have basically used up all of our revolving fund balances
Right.
in order to stay level service for this year. We had made a commitment as a school committee the prior year that we were going to be consistent for FY18 and FY19. We were going to keep things as sustainable, stable as possible, and give the community some consistency
Well,
and
we
certainty
talked about,
around what they
sure,
were getting from the
right,
school
right.
district.
Right.
If we hadn't gotten the override, we would be sitting here probably looking at a $1 million
Right, right,
deficit
right.
off of a level service budget.
Right.
The other thing, if we hadn't gotten the override, we wouldn't have had any rainy day funds to address the special ed circumstances we ran into this year. We would have been back at town meeting, at special town meeting, requesting more dollars from the town to address those needs.
How much of the override funds went into the FY19 school budget?
$643,000 was the dollar amount that we got once the override passed. That
Okay,
was
dead
the
on
number.
number, 643?
Yeah,
Okay.
it
And
changed again.
Okay, but 643 and change?
And so basically what it was, Howard, was Matt had calculated the amount to keep us at the superintendent's preliminary proposed budget,
Okay,
which is basically, as Brett indicated, level service,
Yeah.
for what that means at a school department.
Yeah,
Level
yeah.
service, because you know
Yeah.
how in special ed you have to
Yeah,
add
yeah.
from 18 going into 19.
Yeah, and so,
Okay.
and so, you know, so the set, having that $643,000 of override money last year meant a 3.5% increase in our appropriation for FY19 over what FY18
Perfect.
was. But again, that was
Perfect.
level service stuff.
Perfect.
That
Right.
all makes sense?
that's what
Okay.
that helps me. Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
So then going into this year, you know, I guess you can assume that of that, you know, now the 1.5 million override, it's all kind of in, it's
Yeah,
in the system
yeah,
now.
fair enough.
You know, you
Yeah.
would say that 643 is coming back to us, you know, as part of whatever, it depends on what
The
appropriation we get, I
concept
guess.
would be a
Right.
You know,
ballpark,
yeah.
similar number
Yeah.
out of this year's
Yeah,
override money, if you will.
Again.
Well, depending
Yeah.
on what.
Again, depends on what level
what
of
we-
appropriation we end up
In
getting,
the end,
I guess,
yeah.
and that's, you know, yeah.
Would the level funding number come close to needing the 643, or is that, those two numbers don't crisscross?
Yeah, I
the
guess they
same
don't,
way?
well, no, they would, I guess, you know, at
Close.
least 643, you know,
Okay.
plus there, yeah.
Okay, fair
So,
enough.
that make sense?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So any other questions on the concept of level service and, you know, kind of our funding mechanisms and whatnot? Okay.
Level service is a moving target.
Yeah.
Every
Sure,
year.
sure,
yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Um,
it almost always moves up, you know.
So when we were here last year at this time, and we were talking what we thought we needed, and the budget was approved, between the budget being approved and the school year beginning, we've hired, I believe it was 5 ABA therapists that we did not anticipate,
Right,
2.5 paraprofessionals.
right.
And 1 classroom teacher, and some other things as well. So that what was level last year, we've added throughout the course of the year. And that happens every year. Kids move in,
Sure.
kids move out, kids transfer back in, kids transfer out. And it all depends upon, you know, what we need to do in order to address those issues.
Sure.
Maybe the class size becomes too great, the school committee wants to hire another teacher, or the student has needs, we need to meet those needs. So that's why, you know, that when you talk about a budget here in March, and what we might encounter on August 25th, can be very different.
Sure.
What does
And-
that ABA, uses numbers, but we don't know
Yeah.
what these letters
Um,
mean.
ABA.
Applied behavior.
Applied behavior
Analysis.
analysis?
Analyst, I said analyst, I knew that didn't sound right,
Analyst.
analyst.
So it works with special education students. More often than not, it's a one-to-one
Mhm.
with a student who has specific needs, has been assessed, has been tested, has qualified for, and, or they may have come into the district with a special education IEP that requires them to have an ABA. So if somebody, for example, moves in the town and on their IEP, they have an ABA, we don't have an ABA in place, we have to hire an ABA to meet that need, otherwise we'd be out of compliance, and we'd end up at the state and be sued for not meeting our obligation to the students, so that's the
And then,
downside.
I know that we don't get reimbursed for any of this stuff until the year after, but when you look back, what percentage do we get reimbursed compared to what percentage we're putting out?
Yeah,
And I know it's
if
not
you-
until the next year.
No, if you,
Yeah.
if you actually don't mind waiting a little bit, I do, when I do
okay.
go over the revolving funds, I
Okay.
actually am going to go over the circuit breaker in great detail,
Okay,
exactly how it works and
Right.
what thresholds and all
That'd be
of
great.
right,
that.
but do you have it
Mhm.
tied into what we actually spend compared to what we get back?
Oh, it doesn't work that way because it goes by student and there's a threshold, and I'll get into that. And I
Yeah,
actually have a
okay.
sheet to show you, so it'll be easy to see it visually when I get to
All
that
right.
point, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Or I can go
sure.
over it now,
No,
if, you
no,
know.
I'll wait.
Okay.
So Courtney has been running off papers and has packets for everybody, if you would like, she can distribute those to you. It's,
And I have to apologize, I went by the names that were on the website.
We're good.
Okay?
We're good.
And then
Nobody
I
take
heard you
umbrage,
on, I
please.
said, oh
No,
no,
that's
okay,
right.
so if you guys wanna grab, and you know, you might have to see whose names
We're good,
are,
we're
I'm
good. It
sorry.
doesn't- They're all the same.
Hey, you
I wanted to make sure I had even been so
Right.
careful, I spelled everything
That's one of my
exactly
better
right, and then I,
names.
oh no. So if any of you ever felt like you wanted to be somebody different, here's your
Nice to know.
opportunity.
So there's a lot of information in there that we'll come back to, but I think the real issue that we want to look at is, and I had a sense when we left last time that so many people weren't really clear, what is our real budget? What do we believe is our real need in order for us to continue to do what we've been doing?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was, as Brett mentioned, 14,025,000 and something.
Okay.
Which is 5.25%, I think it was, right? Am I
5.34.
5.34?
Up from FY19.
Right.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
all relates to what we had talked about 2 weeks ago when I
Sure.
came in and I talked to you about possible new positions, so on and so forth. Okay, so that was kind of the plan behind all of that. But as Brett mentioned, right now, what we're presenting is $13,744,000.
Yeah, so maybe let's talk about the mechanics of this sheet a little bit, because this is something I asked Courtney to put together. Kind of the middle of the page, you'll see a number, like almost dead smack in the middle, 13,744,111. That's our level service budget. Anything you see above that, yep.
That's this one.
Yeah, that's, we're gonna get to one of it's right
Okay,
right here.
and which is yeah.
Right here at the top.
Anything above that number are things that we would like to add to kind of execute on the full moving the district forward plan, and that's, you can see where it goes as high as 14,034,511. So if you move up the page.
At the top of the
Yeah,
page.
at the top of the page, yes, if you move up, so
Yeah,
anything
sure.
above is things you would have to
Yeah.
add, anything below is things that we would have to cut in order to
Sure.
get down to certain thresholds, either 2% or 1%. The bottom of the page is a reconciliation that Courtney can take you, that takes you through, what our FY19 appropriation was, things that are added to that in order to get to our new level service budget, and then things that we've already made some reductions since the last time we talked to you, kind of just trying to carve this in. Again, we know the position the town's in. So just, are there things that we need that we can do without next year to make this number more palatable to get a level service budget? And that's part of the exercise that everyone really in this room, and I'm gonna use the word "we" a lot, it's really not me. It's everybody that's sitting behind me and the folks sitting next to me here. So does that make sense on kind of how this sheet is working here?
Can I ask a question about something on here?
Yep.
The Chromebooks,
Yep.
these are for which,
Middle school.
for the middle school?
Mhm.
So, for every student?
At the middle school, it'll be every student.
Okay.
yes.
And then they're brand new?
They'd be brand new, yeah.
How often do they
it's a
get
3-year
changed?
lease.
3-year, okay.
Well, this was an outright purchase.
Right, this
This is going to be for an outright
Right,
purchase.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, those particular ones were an outright purchase, right? I don't think the lease is the lease someplace else in here.
At the high school.
The high school
The
was
high
in the
school,
budget.
sorry, yes.
Oh, yes, that's
Yeah,
always
that's
incorporated in the
already
budget, because we've already done that.
And then with technology changing, how often will you need to replace something like the Chromebooks? Or are they good for, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
use them as long as you
Donna
can?
could better answer that, but right now, the ones we had at the high school, we used for 3 years, and we, because we had a lease, we rotated them out. I don't anticipate that that would be the case with these. I would anticipate
We're
5, 6
replacing
years, 10.
the
good.
iPads that are 4 or 5 years old, I
Right.
think.
5 years old, they're definitely end of life.
Yeah.
The
Presently,
screens
they have
are
iPads.
extraordinarily brittle, and if they do drop, they shatter in a million pieces. Batteries are only life. These Chromebooks, they're Dells, they are hardened for schools, and because they're Chrome, we don't have to buy any software with it. The security's built in through
Yep.
Google, so
Okay.
it was vetted across the last 2 years, and we determined that this was best to move forward.
And the high school's in their 4th year using Chromebooks, and we're very happy with it. So what I would like to do is, based on the conversation at the end of the meeting last time, was that there didn't seem like there was clarity in answer to your question, Howard, was that I wanted to make sure that we were clear that the real ask is, as Brett mentioned at the top of the page, the 14,034,000. But we got the sense that we needed to come down, and the only way to come down is obviously things have to go away. So I'm gonna walk you through how that all
Sure.
happened. I'm gonna give you a document that gets us in place, so if we don't mind sharing those, you guys can take one as well. Okay, so the process went something like this. The first step of this was that we looked at the staffing positions that we had suggested that we would like to include for the upcoming year to continue to build on the foundation that we put in place last year. These are the positions, I mentioned them last meeting we had, so I think hopefully everybody has a grasp on what the purpose behind them was. But you're reducing a .2 Spanish teacher. We would not, I'm not sorry, I shouldn't say reducing. We would not be appointing a .2 Spanish teacher. We would not be appointing a 1.0 STEM teacher at the elementary school. We would not be appointing a 1.0 STEM teacher at the middle school. Academic center teacher. We would not be appointing a health teacher at the high school. We would not be appointing a science teacher at the high school. We would not have a trainer. And we would not be replacing 25 of the 50 14-year-old PCs that are at the high school. So there's $290,400 that came off the top. But with that, also any continued growth and progress that we had talked about last year around stability and sustainability. Secondly, we then went in and looked at some lines within our district-wide budget, within our budget, and made decisions that we were not excited about doing, but felt we had to make cuts. So we took $2,250 across the board in office supplies, $11,750 in instructional supplies, $29,250 in technology, some positions, coaching and advisors positions that we were hoping that might come back, we just will not fill them. The building and grounds will lose $7,700 in their supply line, which is painful. We would reduce legal services by $2,000, travel and advertisement by $1,250, for a total of $69,044. Since our last meeting, there were some reductions that occurred, some retirements that we found out about, and some resignations that we found out about. That would give us an additional savings of $70,815 there. Then, the fourth thing we did is the school committee recently approved digging a little deeper into the preschool revolving account for $41,691 and taking an additional $100,000 out of school choice. So if you combine all of it that we're talking about, the total out of those accounts that we are using to run the school district is $2,826,076. That goes directly into the operating account.
I believe that's an increase in the use of revolving funds of about $400,000 over previous year.
I see this this 29400 here. Is this on here somewhere?
Yeah, it's these two added together.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, down, right here.
okay, and
Yeah.
then,
This document basically is a reflection of what's here.
right,
He's just trying to.
Mhm.
trying to do my math here. So what do I add of these to get to 2,000,008?
Oh, that's not on there. No, that's on your budget document.
Mhm.
That's on your full budget document, which is at the last page
Oh, I
here.
see.
That's money that's coming out of.
Yeah, that's
out
the
of revolving.
total, that's the complete total, yes.
What's the balance in the revolving funds?
I'll get, when I go over the
Okay.
revolving funds,
So-
yeah.
But that's a good
I'll go over that
question,
in
because
detail.
had the override not gone through, as Brett mentioned, we were going over a cliff. That money would have been gone probably
Oh, yeah.
last year in order to sustain and keep us stable, as we had talked about. So fortunately, we didn't use it, but now we're using it again. And so that's the double-edged sword.
Kevin, can I
Yep.
stop you for a minute, if I may? On that handout with the first category, second category, et cetera. So I'm the first category, I see where it comes right off the 14,034,511, back down to 13,744,111. I don't see the second category.
The combined, second and third is combined, maybe Courtney.
So then the next one down to get to the 2%, you're removing the 49,426 and 3906, et cetera. which is a
Hold
total
on,
of
whoa,
154,111.
I'm not that fast.
Okay.
Bear with me.
So right
Do that
out,
again.
right underneath the 13,744,111.
Yep,
All those five things that are reductions come down to what would be, if we got the 2%.
a total of 154,
Yep.
and that'll add up to the 69,044 and what?
No. That,
Are they
okay, just,
mixing?
that's, okay. The budget that you have before you, the March 6 budget.
Yep.
Okay, the actual figures in the budget.
Yep,
Okay, come down to that 13,744,111. Then what we would remove from the budget if we were to get just the 2%.
yep.
No, I think.
Okay, which is not what
Sorry.
that
I
is.
think it's a different question.
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna jump in, because I think,
Okay.
I think I know where they're at. They're looking at Kevin's sheet, second number.
Different
Um,
thing?
Yeah, it doesn't actually tie back to what's on the, so I apologize for
fair
that,
enough,
because
yeah.
we did go through, and
Yep,
these are other, this summary sheet,
yep,
both the 14,034 on the top
yep.
and the 13,744
Yep.
would have been higher. We took some things out before.
Before
we
even
got
getting
there.
down to the
Yeah.
14,034.
Remember I talked to you last
Yes,
time?
yes.
Our level service was at
Yes.
5.25%,
Yep,
and our
So
full ask
category-
was gonna be at like 7 point something percent.
So category 2 is a cut that's already occurred.
Already
Even to
correct.
get to the
Yeah.
534
Yes.
request, the
Yeah, it is, yeah.
14,034.
Yes.
Yep.
And I can go over my
Yeah.
document
Okay.
here if you want.
Right,
Yeah.
and then the next number, the
And I see the
70,000,
third group.
are some people
Yeah.
who just, we found out are resigning or are retiring, and so we're gonna hope to save some.
Yeah, and actually, that number will, I'm sorry, category 2, you can't see at the bottom of the page. There's a 139,859 number. Can you see that?
I do.
That should actually come back to some of these cuts that you see.
That's
Yeah.
the 69
Yeah, that's the
and
one that I was
70
just,
added
his
Yeah.
question,
together.
I was
Yes.
just showing
There
you
it
that.
is,
Sorry,
yes.
that's right. Okay.
He's
Sorry,
got
I
it,
did
yeah,
it right.
It's good
great,
if-
great,
Yeah.
yeah. So if I may ask, while we're here, just real quickly, I see the drop from the 316 to the 2% includes a line item stipend positions.
So I'm gonna go through that,
Okay.
that's the next step. So when we get to this point, we've, with the additional money that the school committee has included, we still need to cut to get to the 2%, which was the question that you asked last time. Are you bringing us a 2% and a 1%? So this is what we would need to do after all that has been done.
Mhm.
These are the next steps to get to the 2% and then to get to the 1%. So to get to the 2%, the $154,000 that needs to be cut, we're eliminating 3 part-time positions at $49,426, some stipend positions at the high school at $26,667, some textbooks at $10,312. Here's where the Chromebooks fall in at $40,000, and we'd have to cut 0.3, which is basically 3/10 of a teacher. That would get us, at that point, to the 2% that we were asked to get to.
What are these part-time support positions? What are
different than
those?
this.
So we have a part-time,
Okay.
3 or 4 part-time
Makes sense.
positions that, in other words, they're not full-time positions. I gotta be careful about what I say, because people watch it, and they all of a sudden they say, hey, wait a minute, that's my job.
So this shows.
So, but
twice
they're
as
part-time positions within the district.
The stipends
Okay.
agrees,
So,
but then the
they're not-
textbooks came down
that
3,000.
We've hired them to meet a specific need. We didn't need full-time, so we hired them as part-time. But again, to talk.
Do they have teaching degrees, these people?
One person has a certification, the other two are not requiring of degrees.
Okay.
So now,
So I've got a question on that,
Yeah.
though. You went down this list on this spreadsheet here, but in this detail, it shows a little different. So the 3 part-time positions agrees with the 49,000.
mhm,
The stipend positions agrees. The textbooks, you mentioned 10,312.
Yep.
This shows 7,132.
okay,
And then the Chromebooks, 40,000, but then the .3 FTEs from the faculty here shows 15,000 in this handout, and this one shows 30,906.
That's 0.6, so it's
Right, so it's like it's twice as much. I'm just confused as to which one's correct, I guess,
This is exactly.
so this one.
Yeah.
this spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta remember, we meet over and over and over and over and over.
No, I know, there's
And,
probably
you know,
various
many hours and back and
reiterations
forth and
of,
different
you
decisions
know,
and-
passing through these. I
But
just
this
want to make
I
sure that
went
I've got the
through and,
correct
you know,
numbers,
yeah.
you know, which ones we want to go by, that's all.
Yep.
Now, the downside to that is, good.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, this is what, you know, this is what the plan is right now. But again, certainly when the school committee gets together and meets and deliberates, you know, they could decide something
Sure,
different.
things
So,
can
I mean,
change.
just to
Absolutely.
make sure, I
Absolutely.
wanna put that out there as well, so.
So, the downside there is that we're still not down to the 1%. So,
Yeah.
now we have to dig even deeper, and that total is 160,961. The only place that we can find that, at this point in time, that larger sum of money, after all the cuts that we've already made, is to go again back to the high school athletics, or 3.2 faculty positions. There's really no other place to go. I mean, we've already trimmed as many lines as we possibly can. We have eliminated stipends, we have eliminated advisors, we have eliminated some textbooks, we've eliminated Chromebooks. We have not added any position. The school committee has taken another $141,000 out. And even at that point, it's still another $160,000 that has to come out of the budget. And the only way that comes out of the budget is that we'd have to make a decision, which I would share with you, was the same decision that I was asked to make in 2015-16, those who were present. Do you want to cut your athletic program, or do you want to cut 8 teachers? I think it was 6 teachers.
I remember this.
Neither one of those is a good decision.
And
And when we saw the ramifications of that, that neither one of those could be a good decision,
So this is where we're at again, to be at the 1%. So you can again see the gravity of the situation. But that's the only way we get to the 1%, is to take all those measures. And that doesn't, you know, include, we talked about the kindergarten, that enrollment is going up. There's gonna be a need for a teacher and a paraprofessional there.
Possibly.
yeah. Probably, yeah,
Yeah.
but, yeah, but,
My guess is that we probably are.
yeah.
It's at 25 now and going up.
Okay.
So, if we do not take athletics, you're talking about a total of really 3.5, because you already cut 0.3 above it.
Mhm.
So you're talking about 3.5, so we'd have to get rid of 3 teachers and half a teacher somewhere within the district. That could, and probably most likely will impact, if we would take it at wherever the lowest student enrollment is by grade, and endeavor to make it as painless as possible. But
So the current school year, the money for the sports, for instance, was that from some of the budget from the town meeting, or was that the parent groups?
That was, the parent group was a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I want to say 3 or 4 years ago.
So they've done that for a while now. then, right?
They made some
Not to
donations.
the
right?
same-
Not
same
nowhere near
extent.
to the
Yeah,
extent
nowhere
that we
near,
had to
oh,
grant.
yeah.
I think
It was just under $100,000.
3 years ago.
Exactly.
125,000, I think it was
Yeah.
110,000, something
Yeah.
like that.
But the boosters still,
We
the
also
athletic
Right.
boosters
raised
still
the user
do add,
fees,
and the music
which,
boosters
as you know, we
pay
brought user
everything.
fees down because we didn't have
Right.
participation
That's-
numbers.
How much
We
is
went up
that?
to 300, we're back down in this budget at 225, correct?
And for your point,
Just
participation,
round numbers, you have any idea?
so
But
hasn't
they're
your
still
school
out
choice in
ways
numbers gone up?
Right,
Your school choice now numbers have gone down.
right.
This'll just,
It'll be revolving back.
So if I wanted to throw more money at fees, theoretically, if that trend continued, would do even better.
Yes. Yeah, to answer your question, so, also with athletics, we have a $225 per student per sport fee that supplements
Correct.
athletics as well, which is again amongst the highest in the valley.
It is.
but to your question, it was $300
Yeah, it was higher.
with no caps, no.
Prior had
Right.
been, now we're down to
Now it's
225.
down to 225.
Is there a cap now on families?
Still is no
No
caps.
cap.
Still, okay, yeah, okay.
But as I said, participation numbers have gone up.
You've seen them trend up as the number, just that $75 difference occurred?
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
and this year, the athletic boosters paid $25 of each of that, so it actually came down to $200
Interesting.
per.
Yeah, great,
Yeah.
great, right, there's a magic number there,
The
isn't
the
there?
athletic boosters
Right.
made
Yeah.
that donation
Yeah.
to try to
Am I
bring
one
the fees
sport athlete
down
or
to
two
increase
sports?
participation.
Oh, yeah.
But it has made a difference, you know,
Yeah.
that's a 33%, you know,
Oh, yeah.
reduction there, you know, from where you were, so.
Okay,
And the band numbers and chorus numbers that we've seen, the participation rates are just
I heard that last
astounding,
time,
you know,
that was
so.
spectacular,
Yeah.
it's, you know I'm the biggest fan
I
of
mean,
it.
across the board, and hopefully you had a chance to read the document that I gave you last time, there's been a lot of, again, those who've been paying attention to it or maybe have been involved in the different committees and so forth, and I know Howard, you have, Mike has as well, and Carol has as well. So the issue has been that we were in desperate strait. People were leaving for reasons that we couldn't offer programs, we couldn't guarantee academic courses, we couldn't guarantee our programs were going to be there.
Large class sizes.
The sizes were going up as well. And so we saw a definite trend, and I gave you that information, I have it here again if you want to see it, but you can see it, you can track it. And as soon as the stability came back, and again, we recognized the committee because they dug deeper, you know, and that's how we were able to stay stable that 1 year. And then the override last year helped us as well.
Can I ask, does somebody have a ballpark number, I know I've asked this in the last year or two, on how many student fees are used a year? So not 300 kids, but 500 fees. You know, 300 kids, some playing 2 sports.
Yeah,
few
I
playing
don't have
three.
that with me,
Anybody?
but we can certainly
We
get
can
that.
get that for you.
You know, the concept of if you've got X
Right.
number and you add $25 into a place so that those fees come from 225 to 2, and then the boosters get it to 175.
Well, I think, yeah.
Does
I
that
think
create
we
a little-
figured out that getting from 225 to 2 was around 7 to 10,000, somewhere
Yeah,
in
we
there.
agreed.
Somewhere in the 7 to 10,000, so you could probably, we can
Okay.
back the math in there.
Okay.
$25, you know, to do it.
And what's the school choice cost net per one child?
I'm not sure.
Same number,
What,
7 or 8,000?
I'm not sure.
So it's
No,
if
sorry,
one
no,
kid
what's the
moves out
total
of
across it?
district,
Or one
what does
kid
that
moves
cost
in.
us?
If one kid moves in, what do we get for additional
Yeah.
revenue?
Oh, it's
$5,000 is kind of standard, it
$5,000.
depends if that student has,
Well,
already has special education
sure,
services.
of
Special
course.
education
Standard
is
is
Sure.
5,000.
5, okay.
Yeah, and
okay.
if one of ours leaves, it's, you know, it's actually more than that we're not getting in Chapter 70 funding per student.
Okay, all right,
Um,
okay,
Yeah.
okay. And we have still theoretically, in certain school buildings at least, additional capacity?
Oh,
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Yeah,
So we
we're
can
at
still be
around
sellers.
1,300
Right.
Okay.
students, and I think we had capped, our highest enrollment was somewhere in the 1,700 range for the whole district.
and what is it currently?
1,300?
Okay,
So
okay,
I think
okay.
we're somewhere
All right.
in the 300 to 400
Okay.
off of our max capacity. Now,
Okay,
probably when there were 1,700, we might have still been, that might have been predated the elementary school.
Okay.
We might have been still in
That's
this
impressive.
building and in the trailers
Yeah,
at that
okay.
time, so.
I think it's before my time.
Okay.
Highest, I think,
Okay.
when I was here, it
Okay.
was 14 and change.
Okay, okay.
Call
All
them
right.
demountables, it's a
All
nicer
right,
word.
great. Okay.
What is that?
They used to call them demountables because it was a nicer word than trailers.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
trying
that's right,
to
yeah.
put a dress on a pig.
Right. Okay.
What do we have next?
Are we ready to move on? We talk about revolving funds?
I have a question, yeah. So last time I asked you about the special ed, the special needs and so on, and how much the state mandates, but it's sort of an unfunded mandate, right? Are there any other areas in the budget that you have very little wiggle room because of state demands?
For unfunded mandates,
I mean, just generally speaking, if you look at the whole budget picture, are there some things that we really have very little wiggle room because of state regulations or state demands? Other than
not to the impact that special
Okay.
education would have to us.
But,
no.
it's like even our curriculum, a lot of that to a certain extent is
So
dictated.
textbooks that, if your textbook is not aligned, I'll give you a perfect example. The science curriculum, ninth grade science, has gone back and forth like a yo-yo. And so in order to be in compliance, we went out and bought textbooks. Otherwise, you're not in compliance, and when the MCAS test comes around, your kids are not prepared for it. Bought textbooks, they reverted back, so now we have those textbooks sitting on a shelf because we had to have them. So those are some of the examples. that
So
you
the
might-
impact there, would that be the MCAS scores primarily?
Well, I mean, we certainly couldn't,
Well,
you know,
both the
offer.
MCAT scores as well as-
It went from environmental science to, was it earth science? Environmental,
Earth science to environmental.
Right.
And then they're really pushing for you to do intro physics.
right. And so they haven't settled, so when they don't settle, we're trying to keep current with what's on the exam. And so the exam,
Oh, I see.
the exam was gonna be earth science, now it's reverted back to environmental, which is where we were before they changed to earth science. So, I mean, it's just those kind of mandates. The American history, or the history, I should say, the entire history curriculum is being revamped. That will have an impact on us because we'll need to shift textbooks, and we may need to get additional textbooks, just because they're shifting the curriculum in history, which I believe is that what you teach?
Yeah.
There you go. So there's the other piece of it.
EL,
Yeah,
another one.
English learners, and so we've had some additional costs involved there, not to the extent of other districts, but there have been, had hiring staff and so on.
And just so you know, maybe before we go any further, a lot of our financial woes in this town, I still feel are tied back, to the state. And, when I sat on this board, we talked about it ad nauseum around, we've got, town revenues increasing at 2.5%, let's say, but which was only about 50, but our total revenues were about 50-50 at one point between town revenues and state revenues. State only grew at, I think it's probably 0.5% now at this point over the last 10 years. Town's growing at 2.5%, you average those things out, and now you're only growing at, 1.25% in total at that point. So we've reached out to Rep. McKenna and Senator Fatman, to get in front of them again. They've heard our story before, but we just want to, keep talking to them. We've heard back from Rep. McKenna. He's open to attending an upcoming meeting. We haven't heard from Mr. Fatman yet, so. But, we're going to keep knocking on their door and, keep telling them the story and, ask them, okay, if you were running the place, what should we be doing differently, and just get ideas from them. How can they help us with grants? How can they help us with some of the ideas around, collaborating with surrounding districts? So, we're going to keep working that angle as well.
If I may.
Yep.
Jean would never let me ask this question. She's not here.
But I am.
I understand.
Jean and I will.
How could either the finance committee or members of the finance committee encourage the school committee to propose a budget that might have an additional $7,000 line item that might
Reduce fees.
look to address reducing the fees just a little more to see when we hit the break-even point, because we haven't hit it yet? Or did I just answer my own question?
Yeah, it's.
I just did encourage.
Yes. So I would say the best way to do that is to attend one of our school committee meetings and speak to us
I
about
am.
these things. And
I
so you have to
currently
be
am.
at one right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
We got one,
So,
yeah.
I remember you convening one.
yes. So your suggestion
No
is
pun
duly
intended.
noted, Mr. D'Amico, and it's something that, we'll consider. But there's,
Okay.
lots of factors to consider, but we have taken that very, very seriously. There's been lots of issues that we've tried to address, that being
I
one of
know
them,
that.
and we think they all factor into, trying to take a very holistic
And
approach.
I know, we've been around that a bunch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I could say one more, we were all present at last year, those of us from the committee last year, when I got in front of the tri-board and said to them, this is what we would like to do. Everybody thought it was a great idea, we saw benefits from it, but we did say before we went up there that the biggest concern that I have with this is to bring it forward is going, I know it's gonna pay dividends, but if it's not sustainable,
Right,
we shouldn't do this.
right. Correct,
And-
same
and-
idea.
And we're right back there at this point. And again, we'll live with what the town tells us the number is, and we'll make these cuts. It'll be painful, but we will do that because we've done it in the past. I think we've proven that we will do that. But we came out, we shared information, I shared the information 2 weeks ago, of what we would like to go forward with. I genuinely believe that it will again continue to generate interest in the school. I think it will keep students here. I think it will attract students to us from school choice. But that's in danger at this point.
I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit on that word, sustainable.
Yep.
In your view of the use of that word, is the 316 the sustainable number, or is the 534 the sustainable number? Do you follow that?
Yep.
Yeah,
The 316 doesn't allow us to implement anything that we talked about.
I understand that.
Right, so-
But in terms of at least,
Right.
not moving backwards, at least,
Right.
I know you're right, you outlined a vision a year ago.
Right.
And some of that vision we've been able to implement because of the override. The 316 versus the 534. The 316 is sustainable vision. The 534 is growth in the vision.
Yeah, I would say that, and maybe the word we use a lot of times with sustainable is certainty. The 316 gives you the certainty around things we have now, you're going to have next year,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For the 316.
The 316.
And the 534
Still making
continues
some
to
cuts.
develop the growth
Yeah.
of what we want, our
Correct.
vision is for our school system.
Yeah,
Fair
and
enough.
the truth is too, is that, between 316 and 534, there's a spectrum there
Sure,
too.
sure.
Doesn't have to be that.
Sure,
Right.
sure,
You know,
sure,
That's a
sure.
good point.
It doesn't have to be, and I said
I
this 2 weeks ago, I said, it doesn't have to be, it's not all of this
So
has to
all or
be
nothing.
implemented.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know, all
But-
these pieces can be implemented separately.
Some of these things,
It'd be great to get 2 or 3
No
at a time.
one wants to go backwards.
Yeah.
We want to go forward, but everybody's got a need.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to
Right.
balance all of those. Sure.
Right.
So-
Oh, we
Yeah,
understand that.
sure. Yeah.
so if I was being honest, somewhere between the three
Yeah,
of one
gotcha.
and the
Yeah.
I think
I think,
we're in
yes,
good
I
shape.
think that the best position you're in is where you can show consistent growth, where we did probably something a
actually
little bit
done
higher
that
than the
for 3 or
3-1,
4
it's,
years.
it's
Yeah.
maybe 4%
Well,
this year, and then another 4%
yeah.
next year, and,
I'm an optimist.
Yeah, so,
So between that, I think,
Okay.
because you've taken things out, you want to put them
And I
back,
see it.
and then you might want to add 1 or 2, but again, there's what the 1 looks like,
Yeah.
here's what the 2 looks like,
Sure.
there's what 3.16, and then somewhere in between.
When would we see a final proposal?
I
Well,
think
when we
this
get the-
is
Is
Yeah,
this
this
final
is what we
proposal.
are right
This
now.
This is
Okay.
letting you
What we
know
get.
Yeah, what we get.
what we
For
need,
appropriation,
and
right.
Fair enough.
yeah, once we get a number back from the town,
Right.
Yep.
Then we can very
we have to go
quickly-
back to the drawing board
right.
and say, okay,
When would you get a number from the town?
Everything's different now.
yeah, I was gonna say, in
Nothing's
years
like-
past, we
yeah,
would
I
have
no
gotten
idea.
it in April sometime, but I don't know. Last year, we didn't know until after the override.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it's gonna work
Okay.
this year, because I think there's
Okay.
there's some balls in the air, from what I understand from the town administrator with regards to health insurance and other things that are probably gonna dictate the number.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fully honest with you, so
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if we don't know for sure until May, to be honest with you, until the town meeting.
Okay.
Is my sense.
Okay.
At least that.
This would be the
pessimist, you know.
This would be the set of numbers you'd come to town meeting with.
far as the plan, I would think, unless the school committee,
Well,
decides
I
something
think town
differently.
meeting is really gonna be what you guys in the Board of Selectmen recommend. So really, we're gonna be waiting to see what you guys in the Board of Selectmen recommend.
This is your proposal for us.
This is our ask.
For town
Yes.
meeting,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, and then, Courtney, you had some.
Revolving funds, do you wanna talk about those a bit
Yeah.
next? Does that sound good?
Did you have any other questions with regard to anything having to do with the budget before I move on to the revolving funds? Okay. All right, so I did put in your packet, and I'll go through them one by one. So the top one is the school choice revolving fund. So our two largest funds are the school choice revolving, and then the circuit breaker. So we're gonna start off with school choice revolving. So as you can see,
So
I
it's another,
have.
yeah, it's another 8.5 by 11, it's not the giant one. The giant one is our detailed
Looks like this.
budget,
The last
yeah.
page.
So this one is our line by line, kind of school by school budget. In years past, I think we've gone through that. We're not gonna do that.
Correct.
When I was
Not
sitting with you
tonight,
guys,
no.
I'm like, nope, I don't wanna do that,
Nope.
so we're not doing that.
We just did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the school choice revolving, as you can see here, I'm showing you a trend
Mhm.
of actual figures all the way from FY '11, right up through FY '18. Those are actual. And anytime you see italics, for me, that means it's a projection, just to distinguish, because we're still in the current fiscal year.
Mhm.
So I have the FY '19 projections for both, I have the carryover as an actual, the 1,102,072. The 758,488 is where we are at this time for receipts. Now, with regard to school choice, they actually do a reconciliation between DESE and DOR. They don't do it until June. You know how that is. You hear that from Jean as well.
Yeah.
So Jean will find out, later on, kind of too late too, what the actual is. So that's italicized, but, a fairly good number. I always try to be prudently conservative, obviously with my revenues. And this is the amount that we have thus far. Now, what I do with regard to budget presentation for the school committee is a planned expenditures line, the 701,806. That's what we incorporated in our FY '19 budget. And then anything additional that they vote throughout the year, I add in to the line below. And I keep that as a running total. So then you have your ending fund balance of 1,037,147 projected at this point through June 30th. Then below that, for both the school choice and the circuit breaker, I just thought it was always a good idea to visually, just kind of put something aside for
Mhm.
contingency. That way it's on your mind that you want to keep something there, even though it's the 787,147 and the 250 adds up to the fund balance, you do have all of that available. It's just to keep it in everybody's mind that we should be thinking about a contingency for if anything
If
happens.
we've gotten
So-
down to 250, we've lost all flexibility.
Right.
That's the, break glass in case,
Right.
kind of number there.
What are the biggest sources of receipts?
Oh, this is school choice tuition.
Okay.
This is for
Tuition.
students.
This is all just a school choice? then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, okay, so it's
Yeah,
all
so this
school
is the
choice, yeah.
123, or what the number is, students coming in will, equate to roughly $750,000 coming to us.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes,
sense?
good, yes.
And then, yeah, you can just see there our planned into FY '20, at 1.24, oh, I'm sorry, I might have the old one, was it 1.34? Oh,
Do you want me to continue? Or?
you want, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
thank you. So the FY '20, that's the projection carryover, 103,747. And I'm being conservative on the receipts of 750,000. The 1,246,000 is what we have incorporated in the budget now. That's your March 6th budget, including that additional
Okay.
100,000. Okay? So what we had for projected fund balance ending as of June 30th, 2020 is 541,147. Now, I know that's lower than the prior years that you see, but it's still a good amount to have available. I would not recommend to the school committee or the superintendent anything that I felt uncomfortable with. And just to let you know that when we were discussing in FY '18, when we were trying to get stabilized,
Mhm.
the biggest thing in FY '18 was to not lose any more staff. That was the biggest thing. So between myself, the superintendent, and the school committee, we were looking at a 2-year plan, 18, 19, and then we extended it into 20, to try, it was first to stabilize the district, and as Brett, I like his verbiage of, shoring up the foundation with the things we did in the beginning of FY '19, and as they both have spoken of going into FY '20, continuing moving forward. So I'm comfortable with that figure, but that does include everything right up through the budget document that you have before you this evening dated March 6th. So that's a school choice. And just to let you know,
Question for you.
school choice,
If I may. So
Yeah.
the 120 of the 121,607 of the additional school committee approved for the
Mhm.
projection FY19,
Mhm.
could you give a flavor as to like what type of items those were? I mean, not an itemized
Oh, no, I
listing,
have
but
an
just.
itemized list, but
I-
I can give you, one of them actually is
Yeah.
all the safety buckets that we purchased.
Okay.
I don't know if you had spoken about that, probably.
Yep, we heard those last time,
Yep,
yeah.
yep, yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
we had 10,924 in safety buckets, 54,853, and this is in FY '19.
Yep.
That was a paraprofessional rate adjustment of $1 per hour.
Okay.
Our paraprofessionals were woefully underpaid, their hourly rate, and actually it still is. But we were hoping that we can kind of shore it up a little bit. We were having a lot of trouble getting people to apply, getting people to stay, and the main reason was because of the pay. Even compared to surrounding districts, that was a large part of it there. 0.5 FTE nurse for the elementary school was 13,757. And then we did purchase 130 Chromebooks for the middle school for 40,073. Okay? And school choice tuition is $5,000 per student coming in tuitioning in, and also there could be a special ed increment if any students require special education services. So that's why you won't see a number that exactly corresponds 123 times 5,000, just
Sure.
in case you were gonna ask, why doesn't that come to exactly that? The next one is circuit breaker. And circuit breaker is a little bit more complicated. Okay, so it goes, with regard to the circuit breaker reimbursement, it goes by the student, okay? And each student's services must equal at least a foundation amount determined by DESC per year, okay? And and you can see on this sheet here, I've got all the information for you. As you can see at the bottom, it's around 40,000, 43,074, 44,106, 45,79, 792. That's the foundation amount per student. So I'm gonna give you an example. So say we had a student, initials LJ, and his tuition was 100,000. So we'll use rounded numbers. Say the foundation amount was 40,000, then only 60,000 is eligible for circuit breaker reimbursement. And then after that figure, that's the amount that's eligible, then there's a percentage. Now, by law, the percentage amount is 75%. But then they have those three key words in the legislation, subject to appropriation. So that's why you'll see on my sheet, I also give the percentages all the way from FY12 all the way through projection for FY20. And in all those years, only one time in FY14 did they actually appropriate
Yeah,
enough funds to
75.
give us a full 75% out of all those years. And you can see it's varied from 68.71 and up to that 75. The 68% is just a projection for FY20. You can see how that varies. So then you would apply that percentage, whatever the legislature decides for that year, depending on the monies that they have available in that line item. And again, it goes per student, all the way down each student, and then that's how you figure your circuit breaker reimbursement. And it's the expenditures in the current year. So for the FY20 budget, it's the expenditures for students in the current year, FY19, and we will receive the revenue in FY20. Mass General Law also allows you to carry over into a subsequent year up to the amount you received in the preceding year. And the reason being is they want to give you some flexibility for planning purposes, like what we do. We actually meet with Mrs. Urquhart on a regular basis. We talk about, as far as all of the, we call it red flags or things of that nature. Students that she knows she has on the roster, estimated expenditures and things of that nature to actually, keep a good eye on. And I'll show you that on the next sheet there. So we have for FY19, carryover, I'll just quickly go through it. The carryover at the end of this year is 739,947 projected. And I'm planning on bringing in 954, I'll get to that calculation in a minute. And then I actually incorporated in the FY20 budget that same exact amount. Now, as you can see, we're getting lower on that as well. But when I go over the next sheet, I'll explain why I don't have any concerns about that. And I also have a contingency line for unanticipated tuitions or paras or ABAs, things of that nature. And we can pay for anything in circuit breaker that has to do with special education, except we cannot pay for anything having to do with sped transportation, just so that you're aware about that. But do you have any questions on the particulars here? On that sheet before I move into the next circuit breaker sheet?
I might, but you said you were going to address things in the next sheet, so I might need to go back, but go
All right.
ahead. Sure.
Whatever you like, Howard.
No, go-
You'd
no,
be
go
very
ahead.
happy to go back,
No,
okay?
go ahead.
All righty. So the next sheet is our preliminary calculations for FY '20 circuit breaker reimbursement. So again, it's FY '19 expenditures. So each one of these lines, I took out the student initials, because I didn't want anything having to do with initials or anything for students. So all of these amounts in the first column, total expenditures, each of those represents a student, okay? And right away, you know, you wouldn't have anything on this list unless it met the foundation threshold, okay? So, so it's $2,181,424 as far as students that you know are going to be eligible for circuit breaker reimbursement. So you take off the foundation amount, total $778,464, and it goes per student again. And then you have your net eligible claim for each one, just a simple mathematical calculation for each one individually. And for the preliminary calculation, I go by what Jay Sullivan says, for the Associate Commissioner from DESE. Whatever percentage he says business managers should use for budgeting purposes, that's what I use. It may be a little bit higher than that, but he recommended 68% based on his information with regard to the state budget at this point. So you can see the estimated CV reimbursement, and it fluctuates wildly, you know, from $8,739 or $8,179, all the way up to, I think the highest there is $148, $125. And so there's where I get my $954.
So tell me again how you come to these numbers for
Oh,
students?
these are the exact expenditures. So say these are all tuitions, that's their tuition expenditure for FY19.
And how does that get determined for each of those kids?
Oh, we have contracts, we have purchase orders, it's
Oh,
an
okay.
exact,
These are tuitions
exact
for
bill.
students that go to out-of-district
Out of
special
district.
education institutions.
Yep.
There are district.
And one other thing I think would be a good thing to explain at this point too, to give you a full understanding of it. You might be sitting there wondering, well, what about ABAs, and what about paras, and what about teachers? So the ABAs and paras, even though they're a one-to-one for one student, as you can see, there's no way, they wouldn't come, their salary doesn't close to meeting that threshold. Now, with regard to, say, special education teachers, they couldn't be on this sheet because it's one teacher and they're in front of a whole number of students. So they wouldn't be eligible either, so. So Howard?
Yes,
Okay.
so, right, so if I take a look at your previous page, circuit breaker receipts, FY 2019 projection, you're at 1,367,571, right? And then this year for 20, oh, you're down almost, a third. That could be an indication that there are
Students.
fewer students or
That's correct.
fewer expenditures, or it could be an indication that Jay's number was completely different, his percentage calculation. But it sounds like it's the former.
Yeah, typically it's tuitions coming off, but they also can age out, and I'm gonna get
Sure.
into that in a minute when I go
So-
over that final
so
column.
theoretically, in FY '20, at the moment at least, we've got less of a left column total expenditure number than a year ago.
And there's another
I think you've
factor
got-
too that's not on here as well.
Is there-
There's a special ed grant called the 240 grant that we are now paying all tuitions from, and that's over $200,000. So we just found out that that could be eligible as well, but that is not incorporated on the sheet because we just found out from DESE, and that has not been calculated yet. Another reason why I'm not worried about these conservative numbers, so, okay. So back to the, are you all set, Howard, with regard
It
to
did
that?
answer it, yes,
Okay.
thank you, Courtney.
And so one of the other reasons so we try to look prospectively as well, because, if I can't sleep at night, it's just not gonna be good for anybody for many reasons. So as you can see in the far column there, when Mrs. Urquhart presented her FY '20 sped tuition budget, I did notice that a number of students, and you can see they're heavy hitters, for lack of a better way of putting it, they're actually going to be coming off, they're aging out. So it might be at various times, but this is an exact calculation of when they age out. You know, they may turn 22 in October, or it may be April, it may be July, you know. But these are coming off. So the tuition, the expenditure is going to be lower in FY '21, looking forward.
Right.
See?
Right.
Okay, looking forward.
Mm-hmm.
But also, remember what I said, we'll have tuitions in FY '20. We will be receiving the revenue in
Right,
'21.
right.
Okay,
Right.
so that's another reason why I'm, you know, but knock on wood, everything as it is right now.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
and
always
that's something we
being
can
evolved.
never predict, you
And if the
know.
number, the costs go down year over year, let's say, or the net costs go down, where's that realized in the following year's budget?
Oh, it's just when I prepare the budget, so just so you,
Yeah.
because I know it can get very confusing
Yeah.
for people when, say for instance, when we were just discussing the FY '19,
Mhm.
and we had some add-ons, some of them will be school choice, some of them will be circuit breaker.
Sure.
But that being said, when I go to prepare my FY '20 budget, everything is going into the overall budget.
Mm-hmm.
And then you apply what you feel are prudently conservative offsets from all revolving fund grants and donations. So everything goes into the budget in FY '20. And they can fluctuate. Some years, the tuition has gone, and she can back me up with this, and several years back, the tuitions went way down, then they well, way down,
Sure.
in perspective. And then they went way back up again. You just really can't predict. And sometimes a school can change,
Sure.
you know, what their needs are from one year to another. Sometimes we have a student go out, and then we feel that they can come back in, but they might go back out again, because we do try our best to try to have them stay within the district. But
Okay.
if that's not possible, you know,
Okay.
then they have to go back out. But
So
again, these
I
are
think
very
part of this,
conservative
you know,
numbers.
with these types of expenses coming out off after the FY '20 budget, we also know by looking back to the school choice revolving fund, we're gonna have less school choice that we're able to kind of invest back in to help supplement the budget.
Yeah.
We're kind of already planning on those things working out for us.
That helps, thank you.
And that's why I said I look at the two together. I
Yeah.
look at circuit breaker and school choice. I have in my head what they can be used for. I'm thinking prospectively how they work.
Okay.
But we're fortunate that we have some flexibility in
Mhm.
how, you know, in having them work together to kind of overall supplement the overall
Right,
budget for
right.
ourselves.
Okay,
It's complicated.
I'm getting there.
Now the last sheet. And this is just the preschool, only because we did indicate that we are utilizing over $41,000 more than our originally proposed budget. So I have the actuals all the way from 2013 up through 18, and then projections for 19 and 20. So just long story short, you can see there that revenue over expenditures, you can see we are in the negative there, but as far as the ending revolving fund balance, it's a healthy balance. And to be honest with you, DESC does not want to see you building up a war chest and any revenues. Because if you do that, you're in essence overtaxing the taxpayers. You should be utilizing, to the extent possible, being prudently conservative, the revenues you have available to you. And we feel comfortable with this as well. So as you can see, I track everything, so, in detail. Does anybody have any questions about that?
The other source of revenue we talked about was some of the grant dollars. Do you have a spreadsheet that shows some of those?
Unfortunately, I didn't bring that with me this evening, it's not that many, but
I
at the
think on
end
the
of your,
last page
yeah, in the last, yeah, I was just gonna say that, yeah.
Of
On the last
the bigger
page.
The
document.
big document here?
You'll see the total
Yeah.
grants being
Okay.
utilized.
Okay, that'll be helpful.
But we have been showing the past trends on grants, and, you know, they are lower today than they were 10 years ago, it's safe to say.
I'm sure you
but-
get a lot more folks asking, so there's a lot less to go around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have, actually have a detail on the last page there. Yeah, we lost the kindergarten grant, we lost the academic support grant. Trying to think what else we lost. We lost several grants. But I didn't bring my sheet that has all the details for the years and every, you know,
Sure.
yeah, all of that, but at the last page, it indicates every single thing in detail what we use, and also you can see the historical trend with regard to our overall use of revolving funds to offset our general fund budget.
So I'm just looking at these circuit breakers
Mhm.
again. So,
Okay.
for instance, one student, total expenditure was 237, 734, and somebody else was 52. Why would there be such a big difference?
Different services,
Some are
Different level of
day only, some are residential placements.
Oh,
So according
Right,
to the
yeah.
student,
I see.
IEP, right?
Really? Sorry.
Yep, so according to the student's disability and level of need, we have to make a determination as to the type of school that the student will require in order to not just meet their education, but also address the issue, let's call it behavior or safety concerns. It's sort of a whole child approach when you get to that, when you get to any point.
Does the state have guidelines you have to follow when you figure that out, or do you sort of just figure it out based on your own experience?
The decisions come from an educational team, and everything is observationally based and data-based.
I see.
So that's how we come to those decisions. And what we've started doing a lot more of over the last couple of years are something called extended evaluations. So what we do is we will send the student out, it's a state requirement that it's up to 8 weeks. So we send the student to a very specific school, and then we come back and they collect data and have reports on the specific areas of weakness, and then make a determination as to the type of placement. There's really 3 scenarios. Either the student will come back to the public school, the student will participate in a day placement, or the student will participate in a residential placement. But all of these placements are on an annual basis. So an educational team is convened after 1 year, and we always review whether or not the student can come back.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
We're good. Do you want to adjourn your meeting?
I do. Anything else, ladies? No? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the school committee meeting at 8:40. 8:40. We have a motion from Lisa, a second from Kelly. All those in favor? Aye. School committee meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all very
Thank
much
you.
for your
Okay,
time
thank
and
you.
work to
Appreciate it.
prepare for tonight. Thank you. Well, you run out of money.
How are you? Nice to meet you. Didn't feel like I
Sure.
Hey Henry, how are you?
We're ready. Yeah, come on up. Good timing tonight, right? Not bad at all.
We took in the planning board meeting for a while.
Oh, that's gonna be fun. There's a lot of fun, right? Right?
Sorry about the language.
You know those people.
Well,
These are for me.
thank you.
Get one of each.
All righty.
My father was the father of 7, and he served on the finance committee in Milford, so God bless you.
Good old Milford.
All right, so if I may, what I'd like to do is, and we did it earlier, and I know you gentlemen weren't here before, and I know it's somewhat of a formality, but I would like the finance members to reintroduce themselves briefly.
I'm Dick Vandenberg.
Yes, Mr.
Michael Hudak?
Howard D'Amico.
Lynn Mazzoli.
Heather Moore. Carol Godwinski.
Michael Fitzpatrick.
John Lavin.
Perfect, thank you both.
Where do you live?
Douglas.
Do ya?
Nice. The way it works, right?
27 years.
There you go.
Oh, you're a youngster.
All right, so what do you have for us tonight, please?
We coordinated the budget request via the town manager. Matt
Okay.
and I have had several exchanges.
Okay.
And we basically are before you asking for $68,763 additional dollars from the year.
From last year?
That's correct.
Okay.
Just to create a reference point for the conversation.
Michael, do you know as a percentage what kind of an increase that request is from last year? That's what we've been working on.
5.68.
5.68?
To you.
Okay.
The total budget increase to us spread across the 13 towns is 3.53.
Okay, okay. And are we higher just because more students anticipated
Not
from our
really.
group?
There is one additional student, so it's not a case where the additional student was the major driving force in the way the calculation is done. And more than likely, as we make presentations across the district, we've seen multiple school districts that have fewer students than they had a year ago.
Yeah.
The budget's not going down. So there isn't really, unfortunately, a direct, it's easier to sell, it's easier to
Yep.
discuss when there's a direct relationship, but there isn't.
So Douglas, last FY19 to this year is 568, but your overall for the 13 is what percentage?
3.53.
Okay.
Okay, and it's because of the conversations we've had in the past, where the state makes a determination, the ability to pay, and a number of other
Okay.
factors, it's no longer equalized. If you looked at this prior to 1993, whatever the district level was, everybody was paying that. But now
Okay.
that's no longer the case,
Okay.
ever since the court case that drove the estimated wealth or the ability to pay based on income levels and property values versus the other
Okay.
350 communities.
Sure.
Okay.
Did you get a chance to bring us tonight, year over year, I like to see the placement records. Do we have that in here?
I did not bring that. But this is primarily budgets that were approved last week.
Okay. Can somebody get me your placement
Absolutely.
for the last, I think we've done it.
Yeah, last year, we got it for you for last year.
I like to, I got a
Last year,
5-year
year
one,
before.
but even a 1-year one is great. Just, that'd be great.
We like to
Through
give you-
Matt or something.
We like to give
Thank
you
you.
more than a one-year placement.
I agree.
Oftentimes, because with so many employers encouraging the students to pursue their education, sometimes they're entering the employment on a part-time basis, but they're not available full-time until they complete. So it's,
I'd love a 5-year. 5-year would be
but
great.
we will be glad to. do.
Okay, thank you.
If I can, I'll walk you through the budget books that I just gave out, and some reason getting out. The budget books were assembled by our students. The budget subcommittee met roughly 12 times, all different posted sessions, held a hearing last Thursday, and then adopted the budget for the 3.53 increase. There are 3 different ed formulas that are on the street now. The governor has his official numbers. We built this budget primarily on that, but there are 2 others. A subsection of the Senate in Massachusetts released a bill, which they call the Promise Act. It has $2 billion worth of funding, but not identified sources. But so it is their plan, at least for that subgroup of the Senate. Now, that particular bill, which came out before the governor's bill, is not the Senate's bill. It is merely a subsection of the Senate. And in some kind of an interesting development, the former chair of the Education Committee was the primary author and sponsor of that bill, but she was not reappointed by the President of the Senate, Karen Spilker, the new President of the Senate, as to be the new education chair in the next cycle. So there's a shifting of roles and responsibilities. The House of Representatives also has put out a bill to, I could say, what they hope to fund. So we haven't seen a concrete plan other than the governor's numbers, which are, I think, acknowledged to be conservative, particularly in the area of predicted marijuana revenues, because they, like the previous casino revenues, if they don't match up with the projections, there's conservative. So let me tell you, that's what we know from the state. This is what we developed. The budget subcommittee was chaired by Mr. Lavin, and here is, we have a cross-section of school committee members, our treasurer, kind of our coordinator, operation, business manager, and other individuals. If you turn the page, the next thing you find is a cover letter. Over the years, the first 25 years of my 26 years of serving as your vocational technical superintendent, is I've done a cover letter that's highlighted the major changes or components of the budget. Now, one of the things that happened this year, it's a little different. 8 town managers, including yours, asked to meet with me well before the budget was developed. And they voiced concern, as you did as well, as Finance Committee. You weren't the only Finance Committee to raise the issue. Last year, our health insurance benefits were an increase of 9%, which was a spike. It was a major cost driving factor for the budget request that we made. So the town administrators asked, encouraged, lobbied, okay, and said, would I work with the school committee and with the Teachers Association Union in looking at alternatives that would reduce the exposure so we wouldn't have another 9% impact and pass that on to the towns. As a result of that effort, we made 6 presentations to the staff. Obviously, it's not just teachers who are covered by insurances. Okay? We also did presentations in the evening for the spouses so they would have the benefit. We met with our insurance broker And we met on 2 occasions with Harvard Pilgrim, our primary provider. We have 2 health providers, Harvard Pilgrim, who provides the vast majority, and Tufts, which is the smaller. In addition, we made arrangements for the Teachers Association in a non-bargaining year, okay, to sit down with the school committee's bargaining team to have kind of a impact bargaining kind of conversation. There were 3 of those meetings. As a result, I was delighted to report to Matt earlier this evening that we secured a 0 increase in health benefits. So we are far better off than we were a year ago, and we're glad. That creates an interesting challenge moving forward. So my letter indicates that we were asked to do something, asked to look at something, asked to look at alternatives. We respect those conversations, we try to do that. And in this case, with parties coming together for a reason, we were able to secure a 0 increase for the Harvard bill. We have just fewer than a couple hundred employees that are covered under health insurance for that.
Do you self-insure?
Do
Do you have a traditional plan, or do you have is your plan,
I wouldn't, the collective bargaining dictates the manner in which the contributions are made. They're currently 75% to the employer, 25% to the employee. I wouldn't say that's a self-insured, that's an employment coverage as negotiated.
no, I was talking about the type of policy. You must have a traditional policy.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you
might
said
have-
you were Harvard Pilgrim, right?
We have Harvard Pilgrim,
Yeah.
but we have moved into HSAs.
Mhm,
You seem to
okay.
be familiar
Yep,
with this.
I am.
Okay, and so, yes, we tripled the number of people in the health savings
Mhm.
account, option, which is the high deductible,
Mhm.
which minimizes to a degree. So we had 7 a year ago, and we have 21 or 22, and it's growing. Okay. Does that answer that question? Okay. So, one of the next things I wanted to highlight is we have been particularly conservative in the number of times we've come to the towns and asked to support borrowing, and therefore you would accept a burden of borrowing money. Our building is 54 years old. We have submitted plans to the state, to the Mass School Building Authority, to once again self-fund the next section of a roof repair project. Okay, so we'll do that. And the state has received our, what they call an SOI, a statement of interest, which is the application. We estimate the cost to be $700,000 to $800,000. That will not be done by our students, the nature of that job. We do as many things as we can with our students, but that's outside activity. But the standard reimbursement is 53.53. So we will, in fact, be receiving half of the dollars back in the recycling process, which we've done in the past. One of the ways in which we were able to raise the money to do that is we had property that was gifted to us. And we examined a number of options as far as developing that property. But the nature of the property, between the ledge, the wetlands, and everything else, wasn't cost-effective for a school system to invest. A construction firm maybe, but not a school system. So we actually sold the land for $360,000. All right, with permission of the previous, actually the estate of the owner.
Did it abut your current school, or was
It
it
does
far,
not,
far away?
it's about 2 miles away.
Okay.
So, great question. Would have been easier, but it did not.
Okay.
And so that created another pool of money to add to that which we had reserved through other recyclings to be able to fund this and to be able to submit it without asking the towns to borrow any money or accept any lien. That's highlighted here. The other thing is, there's been some conversation, more so in certain other finance committees, but certainly your recognition as well, that municipalities and school systems are expected now, mandated now, to have greater recognition of their OPEB. Okay? Right? And so we had, we received some delayed billing when there was a change in the leadership of the state, the treasurer level. We received billing for, let me describe this and hope that the evolution makes sense. For many years, when the county government structure existed, your non-teaching, your non-professional staff pensions were paid to the county, okay? And there was a separate pension. It wasn't like the mass teachers retirement system. It was a very different scenario. And so when the counties dissolved, the state was expected to take over that responsibility. Right? For whatever reason, the state missed 8 regional schools, and actually 2 economic councils in the western part of the state, one being in West Springfield, and they never billed for the portion to be paid for the OPEB for that year. So we received a bill 3 or 4 years after we were supposed to get it, and with an apology, said, sorry. And so we contested that. We said, you can't do that. You can't swing that on our towns. You can't be paying a bill from 5 years ago with new money. We have no way to do that. And we actually filed special legislation. We worked the other 7 school systems, met several times. I loved having a presentation at the State House. And we secured a general person's understanding that the state wouldn't pursue this whole billing. They kind of acknowledged it, you know. So the 213 bill was 183,000. So what we did, when our auditor came through, we're required to have an independent audit, which we, about 30,000 a year, is built into our budget. When we did that, we worked with our auditor, worked with the state, and we are applying 108. Let me also point out, as soon as the state sent us a bill, even though it was a late bill, the auditor expected us to set aside money to honor it, because it was viewed as like a lien. I said, okay. So we did that, all right? We had no choice to ignore that, and abided by it. But it was in dispute, okay, at the time. So subsequent to that, now it is our plan to take the $213,000 billing, which is $183,000, and apply it without asking the towns for any money to contribute to OPEB. So these are some of the strategies that are incorporated. Yes.
This is my first time on a finance committee, so I'm not familiar with OPEB.
Oh, okay.
What does that stand for?
It's the retirement pension plan.
Okay,
for
I
the
thought that it
non-professional
probably was
employees.
something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other post-employment benefits is what the.
That is the
acronym stands
exact
for.
Okay.
abbreviation.
And every town is so far under what they should have in
Mhm.
there, it's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, here's what's happened over the years.
And even yours isn't making a drop in the bucket, is it?
Yeah, right, right. Well, we hope it is a drop.
A drop in the bucket, that's about it,
I'll give you
yeah.
that. Yeah, this has been an area of concern, that as people look at the level of demand that will be made on these pension funds, and that which has been contributed,
Mhm.
there's alarm, there's concern. And for many years, it was like, it wasn't a priority for towns, or, cities, school systems, and so they just kind of ignored it, kind of let it go, or made a token contribution. More recently, there's been increased pressure to ask you as well as us, certainly, any municipality, any employer, to demonstrate effort to recognize it's a lien, it's an obligation, and to start to provide, there's no demand of a certain amount, but to put something in your budget to recognize that it is an obligation, no longer, you cannot ignore that, or hope that it just never is called upon you. All right, so that's the new pressure. So school systems have been recommended, and municipalities have been recommended to have at least a budgetary item, okay, at the very least, and so it shows up. Even if years ago you put a dollar in it, but, so this is all part of the pressure to recognize that you cannot continue to ignore it. Some of our communities owe $50 million or more.
I know.
Okay, so I don't know exactly where you stand, but on that one, but showing good faith has, pulled the dogs off, if you will, in that regard. Does that answer that? Okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
The clarification. In addition, I referenced in the letter that Valley Tech, once again, has continued to earn special distinctions. We were named one of the top 25 high schools in the nation. And 2 weeks ago, we were just named by a variety of engineering recognitions by New England. So that we're glad to see the students in your investment continue to pay dividends. When I say that, each of the years, the first 25 years, we have provided kind of a return on investment, we call it syllabus if you'd like, in our prospectus. Syllabus is a college professor days. And so our students continue to print a report each year, and we certainly will be doing that in the 26th year. These were hand-delivered to you. If somebody needs a copy, we'll make sure you get them. If I may, Howard. So the next sheet is the green sheet, all right?
Sure.
And that's, most people look at this as the revenue sheet, okay? On the revenue sheet, we have, I witnessed some of your conversations relative to looking at revenue streams and the ability to forecast and predict, which is all part of what we have to do at this time of the year. The primary source for school systems remains to be Chapter 70, which is Base 8. Unfortunately, the governor's plan, which is the only one that was matched with revenue streams, offered a mere $20 more per student, which obviously wouldn't even meet inflation. Okay, now last year, the base aid was $30 a student. So, I mean, I do think highly of our governor, but this was kind of a low-ball place to start, okay? And so we, based on our experience of last year, of $30 per student in this, I encourage the budget subcommittee to estimate and predict that we receive at least, well, actually $30 per student again. So we built this on $30 more per student for recognition, which just doesn't generate a lot of money. The next primary revenue stream for regional systems is transportation, otherwise known as Chapter 71. So this is a big help as far as meeting our obligations and expenses. And we project this to be at a 70% reimbursement. We hope we're accurate in both of those situations. Okay? And then you'll see some of the other categories here as far as revenue. I'd like to point out my budget letter and this document, once again, contributes $225,000 of our reserve, okay, to reduce the assessments. Otherwise, the request we'd be making would be greater than the $68,716 that we are making. In addition,
If I may.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions on the green sheet? Do you want them to go through line item by line item, or can we keep moving?
I'll just give you one other
Sure.
reference and then jump.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay.
please let me know.
Sure, yep.
The other thing is, last year, you'll notice, or when you get a chance to look at this in any greater detail, that we have traditionally, I think for 14 or 15 years, reduced total assessments by ponying up $250,000. This year, we did 225 of our reserve, but we received a slight windfall from the regional transportation of a year ago, so we contributed 25 from that to comprise the 250 from two different sources for next year. And that's the major change.
Okay.
Okay, and then if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the total increase of the 3.53. Okay, on the back side of the green sheet is our usual explanation of the manner in which we use, it'd be free cash to you, it's excess and deficiency to us. This is our reserve account that is monitored and audited by the Department of Revenue. As a standard practice, the Department of Revenue does that tally, and then they notify all the town managers, and certainly us. If you go to the, seeing no other questions on that, but on the pink sheet, okay, you find the specific town-by-town breakup. Now, Douglas has 113 students enrolled at its vocational technical school. It therefore has an ownership of the 9%. Okay, so, and then, of course, the responsibility that goes with it. If, I'll move on.
Are we trending up, down, medium?
Well, this is, let me just make the next point to
Sure,
see
sure.
if you agree.
Yep.
If you look here, the next sheet, which was the blue sheet, which is the bond,
Yep.
agreed 15 years ago, okay, shows that at that time, Douglas had a 9.1% average of 3 years.
Yeah.
So it looks, we have.
Right on it.
Yeah, you're right.
Right,
on it.
okay.
Now, that
I
is the-
appreciate that. That's a nice
you
way to
actually-
look at it. Yep.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked the question
Yep.
because it gave me a
Yep.
chance to share that.
Yep.
The other, it's more awkward when we have a situation where a town, let's call this the mortgage and the other one's the occupancy rate, okay? If the mortgage is high and the occupancy rate is low,
Sure.
then
Yep.
somebody else is paying
Yeah. Yeah.
the mortgage.
Yep. Yep.
And that
Yep.
creates a bit of angst. Or
You're
you-
stealing my lunch money to put into
Right.
school times.
Yeah. So, but you can see that, so it's right on target right now.
Can you address for us, because we do have some new members, and frankly, I like to go through it year over year to see if it changes at all, how our 113 kids were selected?
Okay.
You've talked over the last few years just about different application criterion this school looks to, and I wondered if that's the same, if it's changed, if you could break it down, that would be great.
We operate as a regional vocational technical school, one of basically 26 in the state of Massachusetts, with a state-approved admissions program. Okay? And so the process, there is no exam to get in. It's a process of looking at the candidates' grades, which used to have a 40% weight factor. This committee and others have indicated that's too focused on grades. Okay, so we continue to reduce that, and we have reduced it again for the next cluster of students. So what we have applied to the state, say, listen, we would like to reduce this focus on grades, 7th and 8th grade, pretty much. Kind of thing. We don't want to be guilty, okay, of taking, only students who did particularly well and continue to diversify. Now, the other criteria involved in the application process, you're looking at the behavior of a student. You regularly look at that because employers are focused so much on that. You look at the attendance of a student, because if you don't go to work, you can't keep the job. Now, if a student is ill and has documented reasons for not being at school, that's an excused absence. The other two factors are the recommendation of the sending school counselors who know the student best. And then the last category is an interview with our counselors, our admissions people. Try to keep politics out of it, okay? The interest in coming to the school is off the charts, okay? So we have modified this on 2 different occasions since I've served to reduce the grade factor and disperse it across others. And to continue to ask the counselors who are doing interviews on both sides to probe to see which students have a career interest, have a, kind of grounding themselves. I mean, frankly, if you want to be...
I don't know that. That's my question.
You don't know what?
When you say recommendation with regard to what? When you say career interest? Career generally or career focused to the specific trades you have?
Well, there's particular interest in looking at the 18 career programs that we have.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, right now, if somebody wanted a vet assistant program, we've been a lot of encouragement to do that. We don't have that. That would be one example. So there's been other requests that we don't have.
Is that in the application process?
Yes, you would find that in the view books, in the open house, in presentations that are made. We actually send teachers and admissions, those counselors and teachers, sometimes students, graduates, out to the schools to make presentations about what's available at our school.
Would you pass a higher graded student up if they didn't match the vocational match requirements or opportunities that you have to their 8th grade perception of their career path?
Well, the kind of the good news is I'm not involved. Okay.
I don't mean you.
No. Let me just
That's
say
not what I meant.
No, I know that. But let me just
three different
for the record.
I understand.
No, what I'm saying is the total 100-point scoring process, right? If a person has little interest in careers, that individual is, and the careers that we have, availing themselves of the investment that Douglas has made in the 18 vocational technical programs, which are constantly changing. They're not stagnant.
Yeah, that's
okay. All right. Then that individual is not going to score well in the interview side. That will definitely impact their ability to, for the score to determine whether they get in. They're only competing against the other students.
Okay.
And we intentionally did that because we didn't want, one of the terms that's been used is like a screening kind of, no, hold on, we don't want to do that. We would like to mirror the communities that we serve. But when you have 800 to 1,000 candidates from the district applying, it's created a very interesting challenge. All right, so.
And you still only take 300 a year.
Well,
right?
actually, we take about 315.
Right.
That is
So you're going
twice
up a
as
little
many,
bit more.
twice as many. Our school was 660 students when I started. Now it's 1,250.
Both my
The
sons
population
graduated
is
from
double.
there, so.
Yes, I recognize the name. Okay, but the other thing is, we are constantly renovating to the degree we can our own facility. I mean, it just never stops, okay? My wife would love it. But, so we're always converting space into an expanded space. And oftentimes our students in technical, we can do that because we have the technical expertise to do things like that.
Do you see kids' 8th grade MCAS scores?
No.
You don't?
No.
You see their grades then?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
you're probably going to see more 7th grade than some of the 8th. You don't see an MCAS score.
Okay.
No, ironically, it's interesting. There's at least, in response to a question raised outside of Douglas, relative to that we were taking only students with the highest MCAS, I looked at the entire pool of applicants from that community based on the comment made, all right, and discovered that 42% of the students that were from that community were needs improvement from MCAS.
How would you know that?
Oh, we could pull it up after they arrive.
Got it.
once they come, then you have.
Yeah, you're gonna have that, it follows that.
After the fact.
You get their records with them.
Yeah, you have open records after.
Well, you also have access to things from the state, all that.
Okay.
But we don't use that, we don't need it. No, does that answer your question? I won't
It does.
belabor that.
It does.
So,
Thank you.
We've tried to morph it into something that's sensitive and reasonable, and figure out how we can continue to respond to the workforce as well. One of the things that's interesting is we have 14 students a year ago transitioned off IEPs into a mainstreamed environment. The year before, 13, the year before, 12. So we're experiencing some interesting transitions with beautiful notes from the parents relative to this stuff as we continue to work. I would like to also praise, I mean, we work with 11 feeder school districts. We only take students from our district, which means we have no discretionary money from choice or out of district Chapter 74 tuition, which is 3 times choice money. We only draw from the district because the interest in the district is so great. There's no need. We don't leave empty seats to sell them. And that's not criticism of anyone else. But we also benefit from the preparation on the kindergarten through 8th grade of the sending schools. That, when the student comes from the sending school to us, they've spent their earlier years in one of our sending schools. So it's kind of the foundation for us to build upon. And I credit the sending school work, the counselors, special ed, everybody else who's come through. Any other questions on the pink sheet? You exempted the debt. You, along with 8 other towns, exempted the debt that's on the blue sheet. Okay? So that's outside your 2.5 levy. Okay? The next few sheets are the individual breakout that tally the 3.53% total increase in the budget. The 2 major increases are in instruction and pupil transportation. Again, move on. Well, you'll find a series of charts that attempt to display some
Before we get
cost.
to the chart
Yeah, go
on
ahead.
the ROI
Yes,
page.
sir. Go ahead.
Okay. I do note that this says that on the MCAS, one of the schools has a higher MCAS.
In the last cycle, the school, Hopedale is the smallest testing group, did a remarkable improvement, and we did not finish number 1 in the district. We finished number 1 in the state for vocational technical, but second to the district. Okay?
I note that Grafton's enrollment number is proportionately much lower than their percentage ownership interest.
And that is a concern for the state rep and a series of other people in Grafton.
What do you mean?
They're very interested in determining whether or not the students in Grafton are getting all the information to avail themselves of the vocational technical school.
Are you getting fewer apps from Grafton, or just?
Well, there is less than a cooperative arrangement in place now for us to make presentations. Okay, Grafton. Well, here's an example. Grafton decided that the only day which the students could come and visit Valley Tech was Halloween. So the students had an in-service day, and they were given a choice. They
Yeah.
could either, we pay for the transportation.
Yeah.
They could either come to see their vocational technical school, or they could trick or treat.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, that is a questionable practice, and, kind of thing. So, there's an example. Now, that has been brought to the attention of the authorities in Grafton, and we'll let them work these things out. Okay? But the state representative has also indicated he's unhappy with some of those things. Okay? We do our best to work with colleagues across the state, the district.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna go there, but.
No, I see the numbers, and I'm curious as to what's an outlier. Yeah, okay.
We have had some wonderful cooperative arrangements with school systems throughout the district. Okay. If you would look a little further, you'll see, one of the things we've highlighted, Howard, is the number of things that you find in our budget that you wouldn't normally find in a non-regional budget. We have no place other than our own budget to put anything from legal postings to, unemployment, workman's comp, everything. It's got to be in here. We would like you to point out, to you the grant list. $2 million in projected grants, donations, and revenue. And we can pursue grants that a non-vocational school would not be eligible. A good example of that would be the governor's economic bond relative to equipment for vocational technical school. We were successful in 3 out of the first rounds of that, getting $1 million, all tallied. And we have another $500,000 request before the governor's in this next cycle. But in fairness, a non-vocational school could not.
Sure,
would not
great.
There is a list of some of the other grants. We also had 2 major companies relocate to Texas. They had all kinds of new furniture. They offered us their furniture. We got it as quickly as we could, and we then will sell the old furniture and put that money back in.
I mean, like this classroom furniture?
More like this.
Oh, okay.
Conference rooms, chairs, you name it, all kinds of it.
Sure.
In fact, some of it was so elaborate, we wanted to make sure we put a sign up that said it was donated. We didn't want anyone to think we bought, some mahogany's and.
Mahogany table.
Nice leather chairs you got there, right?
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah.
How are you gonna do the vaping cessation for $5,000? What's that gonna be?
It's a system-wide campaign to have students recognize the consequences, encourage others. First of all, recognize that it's not allowed, it's viewed like smoking, and to ask students through the entire process, we bring in there's videotapes, there's presentation, we have a satellite health center in Milford Hospital in our building.
So when it says Metro West Health Fund, do they actually bring in their own people to talk to the kids, or they give you guys stuff?
That's a foundation that would give a grant.
That is the closed hospital that created a foundation, if you're 100% right. And we regularly apply to them. Marty Cohen and that group, okay, he's the exec. And they provide staff. They also do what I'll call attitudinal climate surveys, to figure out how common is it. Is it the case with only 10% of the students are acknowledging, or is it a greater percentage? So it becomes a campaign for our health students, our nurses, those affiliated with the hospital, and the Metro West Health personnel.
You feel it's been helpful?
I think it would be far worse without it.
Wow, $500,000 for skills, huh?
That's the governor's capital
Yep.
skills grant, but that is equipment, that translates to equipment. Which means if we get equipment from this source, there's actually a 0 request for equipment in the budget.
I have to ask, what's a Revolutionary War reenactment grant?
We social studies.
Why not?
No,
You missed your calling on that one.
So, the social studies is one of the programs academically that has a tendency sometimes to rely a little bit too much on lecturing and one type, where most of our other programs are multi-dimensional. And so one of the things we've done is we've built on additional simulation activities. We did a Civil War reenactment to Daniels Farm, which is an elaborate field that has stone walls, you may be familiar with some
Sure,
bended
yep.
black stone line.
Yep.
And so we had cannon fire, we had cavalry, all kinds of things.
And the
So,
students get to participate in
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Oh, that's
We've
great.
been involved in every aspect. So we decided, the good news is, when we did the Civil War, the Confederate flag wasn't as controversial as it became after that. Okay, so the next one we thought would be appropriate would be an American Revolution. Now, the Civil War was the Battle of Shiloh, a particular battle. Okay? And we were both sides won, it was kind of a good one, negative one. But the American Revolution, that's not what they do. The reenactors there do a symbolic example of what the revolution, not a particular battle. Okay? So that's scheduled, and we're planning that. And we're also, we will be inviting all the area schools to join us in that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to share, a couple minutes or no?
I thought Grant won at Shiloh. I thought Grant won.
He only won one of the battles.
He won at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. He had superior forces, yes. Not picking on him, but yeah, it didn't hurt to have extra men.
Well, but
Yes, that's all true.
Yeah.
Well,
he got the W in his column at the end.
He did, and yes, there was considerable criticism.
But it was a close call.
So one of the things we've been asked about additional ways which we raise money. And so we've had some number of questions. We've also been asked this by colleagues. And so we created this document, okay, that is attached, or there's a complement or supplement. And you can certainly look at the page 1, but let me walk through it. If you look at page 2 of 6, okay, on the bottom of the awards, the bottom of page 2, is a list of some of the awards the system has earned okay, just a sample, and it had money attached to it, which generally translates into, you know, resources for kids. For some, it's not- Yeah, as you look at the top of page, top of page 3, you find competitive grants. I just walked you through some of those in our pursuit of those. Some of the other avenue streams we periodically run, we serve as a banker, okay, for certain grants that might be multi-town, multi-schools. And so we were allowed to charge an indirect cost rate or a fiscal agent rate. So that gives us more revenue, which again, is almost like charging interest. Okay. We regularly pursue all kinds of rebates. Given the technical aspect of our system, we're connected to over 500 businesses. We have 500 business advisors, so we have lots of opportunities. We apply for the state pothole, which is not Chapter 90. Pothole grants are periodic occasions where the state announces that there's money available and you can apply for it. We have, even as I mentioned before, Howard may recall this, is that in 2000, in FY07, Douglas was eligible for $28,000. So we applied on behalf of Douglas, and Douglas got the money. So if it turns out that the school per se is not eligible, but one of our member towns is, we would then work with the town administrator, other individuals, to secure that money for the community, which is, I don't know, just good business. Right. If you look at page 4 of 6, we make special petitions to the state legislature on occasion relative to asking them if there's any available money. Please make sure, if you don't ask, you certainly won't get it. So we try to do that. Okay. We have applied as the next area environmental impact. In some cases, different companies have been penalized for environmental spills and others. We have contacted those companies, and at least 2 occasions over 26 years, we have worked out a plan where they ended up paying us rather than the penalty, with money went into education. But again, as a vocational technical school, we could build an argument that the courts were receptive. Okay? Vehicle subsidies in there. We have a regular practice, and it is highlighted a little bit on the grant list, of asking banks and credit unions and others to sponsor a van, which we use to transport students to do projects in Douglas and other towns, at $3,500 a year. We put the logo of that bank or credit union on the side of the vans, usually transporting about 14 students, to do these projects. Okay? So we continue to do that.
Is that like when you send them out to go build a shed? For,
exactly.
Yeah.
But you might
Like
also
with-
use them
with
in
your
the
brother's shop?
nursing homes,
Yeah.
okay, or the dental presentations where the students go out and make, but that would be another example. You're 100% right. Alumni outreach, we have a long way to go. Some of the vocational technical schools have, have had a head start on us relative to pursuing. Obviously, alumni own businesses. They're very successful in many cases. There's I don't know what, 50 years of alum. I mean, at least 50 years of alum, and we want to increase our outreach to them, and almost like the colleges do, asking for gifting and donations. And so this is targeted for us for continuing growth. We apply for the cultural grants. Well, the district communities have cultural subcommittees, if you will, that offer $250, $350, $500 type grants, and we've received several of these. These are great projects for students, especially in cultural, music, arts, things like that. So we're going to continue to do that. If you look at the page, at the top of page 5, green efforts. We're the only green renovation school in the state, not the new one, but a green renovation. We continue to use green techniques, including access to solar, whether it's on campus or off campus, to continue. We've talked with National Grid, and many other companies that are looking at creating contracts where you, if you agree not to make demand at peak times, in the summer.
Load shedding.
Yeah, you get offset and things like that. So those are just examples.
What percentage of your, I mean, I see the panels on top of the building, they've been there, you know, what percentage comes from those panels for powering the building?
Yeah, those are the photovoltaics. There's multiple other greening techniques. We opted we opted to keep that energy rather than sell it to the provider and then get only part of it back. They estimated it was worth $60,000 in savings the first year. I haven't seen a meter reading in a while to know what it's worth. Okay, but we can continue to look at that. Right, so we have offered, this is kind of a bit of a joke, but we had fees for tours. We had so many requests with the national recognitions we received. We had lots of different colleagues from other states who were asking to come and see us and give a tour. So, and when they're supported by foundations or they're, they're kind of started charging $75 to give these tours, including $15 for lunch. I mean, nobody's gonna confuse us with the Museum of Science or Southwick Zoo. But I mean, so we started charging for this, and ironically, we got a number of requests. The first time we did this, okay, the money that was raised was given, we bought easels for the art teacher.
Yeah.
That were just little.
Yeah, why not?
We don't charge finance committee members. Okay, and then there's a number of gifts and fundraisers underway. If you look at page 6, okay, you'll find a specific list to Douglas of the projects done here over more recently, okay? And these are just samples, okay?
Sure.
Okay, each
Great.
town receives, in the presentations of the finance committee, each town is receiving an individualized delineation of things that were done in their community. It ranges from town to town. That's a summary.
Anybody have any questions?
What's the amount you're asking for?
We're looking, the numbers have been provided via suggested warrant language for the town. It's looking at both operating and debt. Okay. The total new, I'm gonna give you the difference, the delta, okay?
Yeah.
It's 68,716, 716 more than the previous year, which is a heck of a lot less than we asked you last year, as far as the increase. But you had a significant increase in students.
Right. Okay. Otherwise, Doctor and John, thank you both for coming in. Thank you very much.
Just make sure you get that list.
I would appreciate it. I do. I always
We'll get the
appreciate
town
it.
meeting as we always have. Thank you so much.
Thank you both for the time this
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you.
Late night for you guys too, huh?
We've had later.
Still got more coming in?
Did you see
No.
did you see the Globe story last week, that the word senior is now verboten for older people?
Oh, really? What are they gonna call us now?
Old files.
Old people?
So the senior center is now the active person center.
Oh, come on.
Kidding.
Enough already.
So no more senior stuff, right?
Active, that's interesting. Well, that means you made from home to the center?
If you're active, because you made it.
I don't know, some of the seniors I know were hardly inactive before that. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Right, good seeing you. Good seeing you, John.
All right, couple of quick things. I don't
Do we
have,
need, where's Matt? Did you leave?
so, he's around. He's always here. So I don't have any minutes in front of us. I don't know if Pam generated any of those in the last couple of
I didn't
days.
see any in the.
So we're gonna pass on that tonight. I believe we've got a meeting already next
We do,
Tuesday,
Yeah.
okay?
every Tuesday for
So,
like the next 3 weeks.
Do we theoretically, most of us think we're gonna be able to
I
make
won't
that?
be, but
Okay.
I had told
That's
Pam
okay.
that,
Yep,
so.
sure.
I'll be here.
Next Tuesday, I won't be, I've got
Yeah.
our board meeting with work, so.
Okay,
I'll be here.
okay.
So will we have a quorum? I'll be here, you'll be
Yeah,
here.
That's 4, and if
And
Pam
then Pam.
thinks that
Sure,
that's
that's
our 5.
That's
Okay, yeah.
okay.
Oh, you're coming too?
Yeah, I
Oh.
am,
April
yeah.
2nd, I will not be here,
Okay.
I'm gonna be away on a visit.
Okay, yeah, all right,
But I'll
Um,
be here April too, so.
right. Right. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
I'm not gonna